Hello everyone, and welcome to the workshop. My name is Moonfasa, and today we're going to be talking about Blue Jump, and with me I have the resident Blue player of Faeria's community, Sash Umara. How are you doing, Sash?
Good evening, everyone. I'm doing fine. Thank you for the invite. Glad to be here.
Excellent. So we're gonna be if for those who don't know, Sash Umara is pretty much exclusively a blue player. I know you've dipped into other colors, but you are well known for your blue playing on the ranked ladder, and even in tournaments, you brought like 4 times blue lineups very often. I think you even won an open tournament with it before, right?
At least one tournament. I have brought maybe 3 blue decks and something else as well before. But yeah, I'm the resident blue, or how Saturn called me, the blue jump genius.
The Blue Jump Genius. I like that name. So, we're going to talk in a sec about the deck list and some of the choices, but first question I want to ask is what inspires you to play blue so often? Excuse me. What tickles your fancy about the blue archetype so much?
That's a very good question. I wish I would have like an argumentative answer, a logical answer. I think actually I started with the red rush. So for a long time, for like 3 or 4 months, I played only red rush, and then I thought, okay, I have understood this color. Let's go to blue. And I don't know, something. You have to understand, it's not a logical thing. It's something. Maybe the mobility, maybe the fact that I've won more consistently and I got hooked into it. But it's also the fact that it has very, very interesting decks. Decks. I mean more like cards. Transform, sure. Especially the transforms, but also other cards. Even though I have not played that often, but like trick and the possibility to ramp as you collect, though that's also not very unique. It's probably a combination of multiple things, and I just can't put it into words. Sorry.
No, that's very fair. Sometimes the archetype just speaks to us. Blue has a lot of different cards, like you mentioned, which makes it very interesting. There's a few colors like that. Yellow also kind of does similar things, where it's got high mobility and some interesting cards. But blue also has these like Faeria generation tools, like you kind of were mentioning with the Triton Sanctuary and stuff. But if a new player were like looking in on blue, what would you say the blue archetype is built around? Well, we'll stick with blue jump, because there's of course varying archetypes in mono blue.
Sorry, what exactly was the question? I didn't understand.
So, if a new player were looking in on the game, what would you say the blue jump archetype is all about?
I see. So it's about flexibility, in my opinion. It's about the possibility to both attack and defend at the same time, and cards like Battletoads allow you to put, for example, 1 toad aggressive and 1 toad defensive. Also it's about tricks, right? Either that it's moving lands, which is something that is very unique to the game, which is being a land game. The fact that you have the possibility to move your lands closer or more defensive, or even just mess the opponent's land, which he spent quite some time building carefully. That's alone is something interesting about blue.
Yeah,
and lastly, it's about a very powerful win condition into these large creatures like Colossus and Barrow. Which Barrow, another very, very unique card that messes up the opponent's lands. So flexibility, defense and offense at the same time, tricks, and OP stats in these Colossus and Baru.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot going on for blue, and we have other options too, like the Ninja Toad, which is really interesting as a trick. We've got the land tricks, as you mentioned, and then a lot of cards that deal with stat reductions, like Humbling Vision, Emperor's Command, and Frogify. I think blue probably has the most cards in its package that deal with stat reductions.
Right. Frogify nowadays, it has become a bit more expensive, but I think you can still run 2 at most, 1 or 2. It always depends if you want to go more into Humblings and then you take less Frogifies, or vice versa.
Yeah, so why don't you explain... Well, okay, before we get too deep into individual card choices, let's talk about the list, and just the list in general, and why you made some of these choices, and we'll talk about individual cards in a sec.
Okay, so I have to preface this with the fact that this is not a very common list. It's one that I have built over the years that I've played. Some cards are standard, like always you would see the core number of cards that a lot of blue decks are having, like Battletoads, Aurora Mythmaker, Ninja Toad. Of course, I'm running 3. Humblings or Frogifies, Empress Command for the heal. But then where I deviate, and of course the before mentioned Colossus and Baru for the win condition. Baru is exceptionally good versus red, by the way. But then where I deviate is I don't put so many water elementals. I actually only have 1, which is strange, but the idea behind it is that I don't need to make so many lands to go places, because I have Prophet of Tides to reuse existing lands. The same reason why I only have 1 Sunken Tower as well.
Right, so yeah, traditional blue from the very olden days of Faeria, it used to have the core of Battletoads, Triton Warrior, it's got the Ninja Toad, even Tide Lord. Once these came out, these became standard use. One thing that isn't so standard is, well, both the Prophet of Tides and the Baru, not something you would see in traditional blue jump. So what were your decisions there on Baru and Prophet?
On Baru, it's mainly, like I mentioned, if the opponent doesn't have a Last Nightmare, in yellow, for example, and doesn't have the tower that gives a big range to the creatures, I can actually win in an unfavorable matchup from Baru if it's timed properly. However, versus red, which is also not a clear favorable matchup, Baru actually wins me the game most often, because red doesn't have the amount of damage to get to 10 most of the time, and then I steal lands. But so that's the concept behind it. But there are additional features of Baru. One, you get to do double neutrals, and then Baru transforms your your neutrals back into the lands, and this way it has synergy with the Tide Lord, which requires the most amount of lands in this deck. So if you could do double neutral up and then place the Baru aggressive, not only do you have this initiative, like I mentioned, putting Baru in front of the enemy lands, but also you get lakes as well from the production.
Yeah, we know from Baru's lore page, he's the first elemental.
Yes, and lastly, the thing about Baru is, if you know that the matchup is incredibly bad for you, like the stuff that you won't survive, like turn 7, what you can do going second is you lake explore, lake, then you dash the Prophet. Then third turn, you put another lake, and you have exactly for the Baru 11 Faeria aggressive. And you can actually win this way if the opponent is not prepared to have a Baru turn 3.
He's done the math.
That's in the worst kind of matchups.
And the land destruction is pretty powerful against some slow, greedy land lists like green
Definitely.
or even Rakoans or something. Something that requires these very specific lands. And Prophet of Tides, actually in the olden days, used to be a different effect. This used to be move any land twice, and it was a 3-1 stat line instead. It was so strong, it just dominated the meta back then. It was basically a better sunken tower. Yeah, Sesh wasn't around back then.
I wasn't around back then, but to be honest, I still think it's strong. I know it's may not be the popular opinion, but the whole deck is actually lynching on or whatever the expression is, on the Prophet of Tide. Both the Mystic Beast, both the Colossus reduction, and the Baru aggressive.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised.
And also the fact that I don't have to have multiple sunken towers and elementals.
I'm actually surprised when you showed me this list that you only have 2 copies of Prophet, because the classic Sesh opening is double Prophet in the opening hand. How do you do it?
I was actually running 3 copies until I, let's say, listened a bit to the community. and now I only run 2.
Okay, so, so what's the downside to Prophet? Because the early game looks very appealing. You get to move this creature's land twice, really accelerating your lands, getting those Mystic Beast spots. But what's bad about this card? Why do people hate it so much?
Yeah, even though I hype it quite a lot, I am also the first one to tell you about the downside. The obvious one is it has 2 life, which means it can efficiently be cleared by the opponent using Wrath, using Drain.
Yeah.
And so that's the bad part, right? Another one, which is not as obvious from the beginning, is that let's say you are going against Rush of any sort, but especially versus Yellow Rush is where this downside comes. Instead of defending, and that means building lands next to your orb and collecting and hitting into the enemy creatures, you actually get lands away from your orb into the between wells, and then on top of that, you make yet another land away from the orb between wells to do the Mystic Beast Colossus package. So in this regard, you're losing a lot versus a Rush deck.
Yeah, blue has
and lastly,
really interesting land placements.
That I can think of. Sorry, say again?
I just said blue has really interesting land configurations that they can get into because of all these land tricks.
Yes, it does, and I can't wait to talk about those. But the last disadvantage is obviously if you draw it somewhere, I don't know, close to the end of the game, or in positions where you can't make a land, right? Like Tarum exceptions like these, or even against some people that make a lot of neutrals, like Yak decks or bad players. But yeah, drawing it last, clearing it, being cleared early, and moving away when you have to defend. These are the main disadvantages that I can think of.
Yeah, so I think Prophet of Tide really pulls the speed and the pacing of this archetype to be a lot more faster, because ideally with the Prophet being run, you want these to be drawn as early as possible, so you do take advantage of that land acceleration, but as the board gets filled in, you don't have the same advantage of this card. It just becomes a 3-cost 4/2, which is absurdly expensive. And the other question I'm really curious about also is, because you're trying to accelerate with these profits and really claim that top well spot, what's the choice and decision between only 2 Mystic Beasts? Because it feels like the purpose of the profit is to get these Mystic Beasts going, right?
Right. That's because, and I'm going to tie up with what Lizard said in the chat. Not all the time do you want to go to this very narrow game plan of going to the enemy well or bust, because sometimes the opponent is going to put some cards that you don't want to go into them. Eridon, for example, Carasius, another one, etc. There are some cards or some, for example, decks that you don't want to fight same side. So even though you invested the profit, a trick that I usually use is, if I go second, I never actually also invest the Explore in between wells, even though that's the plan, right? That's the plan, to go and put the Mystic Beast Lake and reduce Colossus and so on. Sometimes you don't have the the situation requires you to be more flexible. So then what you do is you keep the Explore, and if that situation arises, you use the Explore and quickly switch sides. And while the opponent builds in order to kill your profit, which is only single collecting, you actually now use these tempies to go to the other side and win this way.
All right.
Yeah. So it's not always that plan. You have to judge it from match to match.
Sure. Yeah, you don't want to invest all your lands.
So that's why only 2 Mystic Beasts, because I don't always need them that early.
Sure. Yeah, blue's very flexible at switching sides if they need to. We talk about that concept a lot, of switching sides in case something really big comes down, your opponent invests something really big. This especially happens into like the mono-green matchup, where they might invest like 6 Faeria worth of creatures into right side, you're invested in right side, but mono blue has the option to just switch sides there, and suddenly your opponent has just dumped 6 Faeria into virtually no pressure anymore, because these jumpers just run away. Which is very cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then... So the Emperor's commands, what are these
Ninjas are very
purpose?
useful, in my opinion. I think the best card after Prophet is Ninja, because, as you say, often the Prophets die, but if you do a Ninja, like you do another lake, for example, on A2, then you collect down twice with Ninja, and then you put a Mystic Beast, so, or put something else. So usually these 2 cards go hand in hand. Not only because the Prophet actually makes the lands in such a way that you can use the Ninja to double collect, but also because it's a good backup to the fact that Prophet is going to die.
Sure, you're setting up the Ninja Toad spaces. And you also set up some other hopping lands as well. These go on the corners of the wells. So what about matchups? You briefly talked about red is pretty decent into this, and yellow is pretty decent into this. So you have Beirut to fight the reds. And what are your options for yellow? Or are we somewhat just giving up on that matchup and just hoping we can win through tactics?
So yellow, we struggle a bit, and the current build of this deck is not actually made to fight yellow. What I would suggest, if you know you're going against flyers, drop 1 command, drop 1 humbling vision, and put 2 volleys, for example. And in fact, drop the Mystic Beast, because the 5 life won't help you against flyers, and put Triton Trainers, because these would allow you, together with ninja, to put the buff on the ninja, and this way you can clear Mr. Guides, you can clear Sky Captains, you can clear more key targets, the combination of trainer plus the ninja that you already have. So, and the volleys, of course, to deal with the champions. So there are actually two versions of this deck, right? With two volleys and trainers, and this one that you have right now. I usually take the volley one to the tournament because at some point the yellow flyers were so dominant in the meta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's kind of options. Unfortunately, you have to have a good start as well against flyers to not lose the side. Because against flyers, it's not easy to maintain both sides like in other games. Because flyers have a lot of mobility, have terrain, so you don't have the pressure to maintain double sides. So you usually want to go as fast as possible onto one side and be lucky with a volley or so, get a value trade, like for example a ninja into a 5/3 creature, and then use warrior to trade the 2/2, stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
so
let's be honest, it's not an easy matchup.
Yeah, and the reason for that is if you're just lining up the sort of Faeria costs in the Flyers to the costs in the Blues, Flyers has a lot of 3-cost, 5-attack creatures, like Demon Wing, for example. This thing just trades super efficiently into the Triton Warrior. Even though this guy's got jump, he's got the potential to double collect. With flying, this guy is threatening a lot of area. Sometimes you're not even able to hop up this Triton Warrior, and you could have collected with something cheaper anyways to begin with. And not to mention the Demon Wing itself is also collecting, so you can just directly compare these Faeria costs. With the Battletoads, we have more than just the 5/2 stat line. We've got the 5/3 with Emissary. We also have a 5/3 Manta Rider. And all of those just, like, they value trade a Toad. It essentially just completely crumbles the Battletoads, again for 3 cost, as opposed to Battletoads 4. And
this is why I suggested the trainer, because then the Toads have the opportunity, or one of them, to become 3 attack.
Yeah, and the trainer is a lot more efficient. It's a 3 cost, right? It can be soul drained, but you're not... Like, Soul Drain is 1 card, or, well, 3 cards out of the entire deck. And if this happens, it happens. You kind of have to make some sacrifices. And it's a lot better than playing, like, Toads that get Soul Drained. And yeah, so Triton Trainer is just a 3 cost that can also still fight these 5/3 stat lines. So you're actually trading even this time. And
the Tide Lord. The Tide Lords are also your main weapon against the flyers.
Well, these ones are...
That's why you don't do double neutral often. Often you just go lake, and get a profit or something to not use double neutrals, because you want to get the Tide Lords as soon as possible versus flyers.
This is maybe a desperate hope at trying to fight. One thing what the Tide Lord can do is go up to 6/6 stat lines, which is pretty nice when fighting flyers. Obviously the 5/5 is horrible, because this gets value traded even further with a 3 cost.
You need it as 6/6.
Yeah, but the unfortunate thing with Tide Lord also is that we have the existence of a lot of 1 damage removal actually, like Spirit Theft, Vulture. It's another 1 damage card.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, it's 2 cards for 1 at the end of the day.
It's 2 cards for, well, Spirit Theft gives you the card back, right? Tide Lord also requires 2 cards on the board for its buff. Now, you're not actually investing that other creature, technically. So there's some things to play around with there, but ultimately, Flyers is pretty decent into the Tide Lord anyways. But it does depend. Like, if you get a Tide Lord in the right position, fighting that 5-attack stat line and they don't have Spirit Thefts in hand, because again, this is also only 3 cards in the deck, then it can do something. But blue jump is just struggling a lot with a lot of the yellow cards. So yeah, to improve that matchup, you really want cards like the Triton Trainer. Volley is a decent pick, I would say, if you're really concerned about flyers as well. Anything that's like cheap with 3 attack is pretty good into flyers. You can kind of just not care about the life stat too much. It does get soul drained. And Prophet of Tides does meet those conditions, technically. The one downside to the Prophet is that it doesn't have jump unlike Trainer. So Trainer has a lot more mobility. This guy.
But the Prophet can help to move your lands aggressive while, sorry that I mentioned again, while making just the lakes. So you get aggressive without double neutral. I think there is a question in the chat by Lizard that the Tide Lords are slowing you down, right? Because you have to make the lands. This is one way to be aggressive early on, and also then put Tide Lord soon after. So you don't have to. You can reach the opponent in an efficient manner in terms of lakes. I often do for the whole game, and that's because of this card.
Right, yeah, you can contest the lands a little bit. But, I mean, Flyers is devastating for so many different decks.
Flyers are devastating, don't get me wrong, chat and everyone. It's a hard matchup for sure.
And sometimes like in a tournament setting, you don't really care. You can just give up that matchup. I mean, hope for the best, but you can just give it up and bring an actual counter list. And I saw Bamster mention why only one Sunken Tower. I think Sesh touched on that already with you have the mobility and the Prophet of Tides to get your land placements in the right positions, and then you've also got those Ninja Toads for surprise tricks. So it's not as needed in this type of list.
Yeah, that's exactly the explanation.
Alright, so do you have anything else you want to talk about with this list in particular?
It makes the mirror slightly... Like if the opponent in a blue jump mirror has an early Sunken Tower, you might be having a hard time because you don't have the proper jump lands, which I'm going to talk in later, while your opponent has. So the use of Sunken Tower is not necessarily to move your lands. That's one part, and that's why I use Prophet for that part. But the other part is to mess the opponent's lands. And in a mirror, this can get tricky if the opponent has a Sunken Tower first. However, when this happens, what I usually do is, okay, my lands are not optimal, so I go for lakes again, and try to come back with the Tide Lords.
Yeah, the big stat line can help. Tide Lord's kinda cool into cards like Humbling Vision, because you're not trading down too much, because they're more like a mid-range stat line. What was I gonna say? I was gonna mention something.
I mean, for 5 costs to use a Humbling and get a 2/2, it's not that bad. Or a 3/3 if it's most of the time it's actually 3/3. So definitely not bad.
And then it value trades Battletoads and things. Sunken Tower. So this is actually an interesting card to talk about in more detail, because I think this card looks really appealing, especially to new players. Or actually, you might even go through some phases as a new player. You might think this card's like kind of like you get to move one land, that's not very far. But then you might discover the power in this card. Being able to move one land is really strong. I mean, any mobility trick in Faeria is really strong. Just that surprise tool of being able to suddenly have a 6/6 in a location where you weren't prepared for it. But on the other hand, this card can also be very expensive. I know it's only 2 costs. It doesn't sound very expensive, but on a turn, you're only gaining 3 per turn, right? So if you're in a position where the match is like pretty even going back and forth and you're both kind of struggling to get a creature to stick, this card can be a very expensive investment, where you're only making 3 per turn. So you play this, you've only got 1 extra for the turn to work with. So you do have to be careful with including too many copies of this card. Sometimes I see players put like 3 Sunken Towers because they're good cards. But you have to be careful because sometimes you can't afford this reasonably well.
I agree. There
yeah.
are some certain thresholds of Faeria that you just can't fit a Sunken Tower. Like if you want to do a ninja line with something else, you just can't fit a Sunken Tower in the same amount of Faeria that you have. And not to mention, most of the deck has flexibility from their own cards using Jump. I found out that more Sunken Towers are needed in the 7th list than in this one.
Yeah, well, the profits do help to get those land positions up, and the Ninja Toads as well, as we talked about. One really cool thing you can do with the Ninja Toad, though, is play this first for an extra collection from collecting off the well. So that is cool. Sometimes you can pair the Sunken Tower if you play the Ninja Toad first. But yeah, it can be expensive sometimes.
I mean, it's cool, but I don't see how good exactly that is. If you don't have anything else, maybe.
Yeah, if you don't have anything else, you definitely want to be careful there.
Because the Ninja is a reactive card, and we don't have that many in this deck to come back from.
Reactive tools, yeah. Yeah, so a reactive tool, if you don't know, is just like something you can respond to your opponent's board with and have it have like immediate impact. So like Ninja Toad does that, but also things like Humbling Vision and Frogify are reactive tools, but you do need a board presence to actually clear the creature afterwards, because these cards don't actually kill anything. They only reduce the stats. And you mentioned at the beginning that Frogify was quite expensive and unfavored these days, so how would you explain this to a new player? Why is Frogify so expensive? It seems pretty strong transforming a creature into a measly 2/2.
It's expensive mainly 2 ways. The number of lands, while it may not seem that 4 lands is a lot, it is, because often you're like on 3 lands and you only need a 4th land for the Tide Lord. And so for the majority of the game, you might be on 3 lands, and that's one part, the number of lands. Especially since I'm not running too many elementals, because again I only need 4. And lastly, the cost for Faeria is, say you are behind, right? And you have only 3 Faeria per turn. And if some opponent surprises you with like a Soul Eater, if you played Frogify, for one thing, that could be your entire turn, and you might sometimes not even be able to draw, so you have to +1 for it if you are on 0 Faeria before the turn started. And the other part of it is you invested that much Faeria and you still gave the opponent a creature.
Yeah.
So you have to be in the initiative to better utilize Frogify, or in a race condition. In that sense, if you are racing, then you don't mind if you give the 2/2 to the opponent. But that's kind of it. Otherwise, it's expensive because of these 2 reasons.
Yeah, and a 2/2 frog is actually pretty strong if left unanswered. Like 2/2 frog with jump. Yeah, that's a double collector. Or it's an Aurora target or some other buff target with a lot of mobility attached to it. Really strong. And not only the land costs, but the Faeria cost is pretty expensive as well. As Sesh mentioned, you only get 3 per turn. And for a card that doesn't even kill the creature, it can be expensive. However, this can be a nice card for creatures that are not dealable with if they're big stat lines, like Firebringer, Soul Eater. So Frogify can be a nice backup to that. I think that's why we run only 2 copies and then split them among the Humbling Visions. And the commands as well. But Humbling Vision's really strong. Go ahead.
If I may say one thing about Frogify, often, but in super rare cases, Frogify can be used on your own creature, like on
oh yes, the Prophet
for lethal purposes. So you want to, for example, you want to hit, but you only have one way accessible. You might Frogify yourself and then volley yourself, and then you have the lethal. But I don't know, Moon, if you remember, we had a game like about 3 weeks ago or so, or more, where I Frogified Mythmaker for the lethal. But if you don't remember it, okay.
That's very fun. Yeah, since you get to target your own creatures too.
Once in a lifetime kind of line that you Frogify for lethal.
Yes. Yeah, those are pretty exciting. And with the Prophet, you could do that too, since it's less mobile.
Yeah, same idea.
And so I will briefly mention why Humbling Vision is a lot more favored than Frogify these days. Way back in the past, this used to be round up, and it was virtually an unplayable card because of that. But since they changed it to round down, this has just dominated the meta over Frogify, just because of that one Faeria cheaper cost, and it basically does the same thing. Many people don't run large stat lines, and this is already good even into like a 7-7 stat line, up to a 7-7, which is a very common stat line in Faeria, 7-7 and below. With the 7-7, you dump it down to a 3-3, which is still better than the Frogify, but you spent 1 cheaper to give them +1/+1 stats, and virtually you're going to be able to value trade that anyways. As long as you're value trading, you're doing just fine with cards like these. The only thing it's bad against is with the Toads, but you can still fight like 5-5 stat lines with a Toad.
I really think I added Frogify just to combat the Disciples deck.
Oh, the
That's
Disciples.
why I have so many nowadays.
Right, Disciple can be a little bit brutal. But yeah, anything that just gets absurd stat lines. And that's really the only reason for the Frogify, things with really large stat lines, because you don't want to be using Frogify on things like Tide Lords, because that's just absurdly expensive. 4 to match the 5, and you're giving them the 2-2. It's just essentially a worse Humbling Vision. So just
in fact, you don't want to use these cards easily, even on a big creature, because you might only have 2, and you need to somehow kill one big creature with your on-board presence, and then with the last 2 Frogifies, you know, okay, now I have a short victory because the next Illusions or the next Eaters, now I can Frogify. But you just need to kill one from your other creatures. So be careful not to use them, even when it seems that that's the case where you should use them.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of decisions to make there. If they're playing Red, Yellow, Angry, for example, well, any Angry list, and they've got big Firebringers coming in the future, yeah, if they're playing the first Firebringer, it's going to be smaller than the rest that are coming, right? So it can be a good idea to just save your Frogifies for the other ones, try and deal with the first one through other means. But of course, like anything in Faeria, there's nuances to every decision. Sometimes it might be good to tempo out this Frogify into their first Firebringer because you can see that you might be able to set up a lethal or something, but that's a pretty complex decision to make. Generally, I think, yeah, holding this card, since you only have 2 copies, is a decent idea, as a basic rule of thumb. Alright, so one thing I did want to talk about quickly is the other build of blue that I think has surfaced as a decent counter to yellow, which I've been playing recently. This one was built by Super Blizzards.
Moon, before we get to the other deck, I have one last mention.
One thing? Sure.
we were talking about Prophet being weak into Yellow Rush because you're like not defending, you're taking your lands instead of keeping them. There is one interesting land placement against Rush where you go Lake Center, right, D1. Then you do Lake D2, and you take the D1 land with the Prophet and move it into your collection. And this is kind of a very minimal diamond formation.
It's the tip of a diamond defense. Yeah, so
the tip of the diamond. Exactly.
Yeah, so D1, D2 meaning like going straight up, and then scooping your
and then taking the D1 or the first land, put it into collection, and now the D2 land sits there just to block the rush opponent. So that's another cool usage of this card.
Yeah, that's an interesting land placement. Yeah, there was one question about 3 commands before were justified before, and yeah, it's been ever since it was released pretty solid, largely because blue doesn't have access to removal, and this can be a somewhat of a removal card. 2 Faeria, 1 damage. It's a little bit expensive, but you can also pair your creatures with taking things, and then you save some HP. But also the healing is really nice into burn. So if you're playing on ladder, I don't think burn is very popular on tournaments these days, but on ladder, burn is pretty popular, so triple command can be pretty cool for that.
Yeah, it's so versatile, from value trades, from heal, from even killing a creature like those 7/1s with shields. Are those the dragons?
The ghost dragon, yeah.
Yeah, ghost dragons. Those are super annoying with the shields, right? So you have to invest at least 2 frogs or something. So it's such a versatile card. And I think Bamster asked, why not 2 Sunken Towers? Because I cannot afford to remove an Empress Command.
Yeah, also the 2 Faeria 1 damage potential is actually still pretty strong because a body in Faeria represents so much. It represents a collector. So if they have like a 1/1 like an Aurora off somewhere on the board where you can't reach with your creatures, spending 2 Faeria to kill that Aurora is actually a really good value for yourself. Even though you're almost essentially trading down like 1 damage for 2, it's still really strong because you get to take out a collector.
Not to mention, the Empress Command also kills structures, which is very important because some structures are win conditions by themselves, like the one that generates a bunch of 6/1s.
Yeah. The structure damage is another nice bonus on top of it, for sure.
It also kills Iona, which is really hard to kill.
Yeah, and we have Humbling Vision as a backup to Iona as well.
Yeah, but it's a backup, sure. But like Altar of Souls and other structures that give you 10 Faeria or something, these are perfect against these are perfect to deal with Empress Command.
Yeah. And the reason you don't see this card show up in other archetypes, or other colors I should say, is because we do just have 2 Faeria 2 damage cards in Cypher's Wrath and Soul Drain. You will see this show up in mono green though. Just any colors that don't have the 2 Faeria 2 damage just have to accept the command, and with all these other features to the cards, it's pretty reasonable to sacrifice that extra damage for these other abilities.
And lastly, the Empress Command, even more than the Frogify, can be used in so many lethals where you kill your own creature to get access to face and hit again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, good to point out that Blue Jump is filled with a lot of smaller and mid-range bodies. They don't have very large statted creatures aside from the Colossus, which is your win condition, but sometimes you can't use the Colossus as your win condition, or maybe this gets Humbling Visioned, really badly traded, or something. Like, this thing has got a target on his back, right? So sometimes you're finishing the game with all of these little guys, And to actually get that lethal in there, you need to use a combination of like movement tricks to push your little guys out of the way to get another little guy in there, or yeah, kill them off with like command or something. This can be a bit expensive, but it is an option.
Alright, should we move to the other deck?
Sure, we'll briefly touch on this one. So like I mentioned, this is made by Super Blizzard. And the reason that this one has been more popular to me, personally, is because of its ability to fight flyers a lot better. So one thing that we've done here, we've taken a large core of the blue jump package. Like, we still got those Battletoads in there, even still have some Triton Warriors and the Colossus here. But we've added in the Sevens package as well, at least some of the Sevens package. So we have things like the Gabrian Archon, we have things like the Gabrian Commander, and then some Sevens. We even have the Beirut in here included too. And then also the Gabrian Warden.
Interesting that also a single sunken tower is run.
Yeah, so this list plays a lot more swarmy. Yellow Flyers inherently has a weakness to swarm as an archetype, because they're a lot about single target removal with their high power stat lines. Like, you spend 3 Faeria to deal a huge amount of damage, but if you go more swarmy, it's really difficult for Flyers to keep up, because they're also pairing these high attack cards with mobility cards like Flashwind and things, so sometimes they're spending 2 cards to kill your stuff, but they really thrive in like keeping the board clear. So having Swarm allows your creatures to stick in the Flyers matchup, and so because we're playing Swarm, we're not as concerned about taking really big trades on creatures and keeping the board clear. We're mainly just going to flood the board with a bunch of creatures and we'll eventually clear things off. So that's the decision for the one sunken tower there. And then, as Sesh mentioned earlier, Triton Trainer is a pretty good counter to Flyers. So we've got three picks of this in here. This is a Swarmy card. You'll notice we have even more than the 9 standard starting creatures in this. We've got Commander, Trainer, Toads, Archon, and the Triton Warrior. So that's what, 5 times 3, 15 minus 1, 14 starting creatures, which is pretty insane. But that's just to add to that swarm. But there's also just limited options in greater than 2 like cards to add anyways. But the other thing is that you get access to these cards really early. You can draw a lot into these swarm tools. Because blue doesn't inherently have a lot of swarm. Battletoads is about the only card that gives you 2 bodies for 1. So we need to use our draw option on the power wheel sometimes to just draw more of these cheap creatures. And we mentioned that Triton Warrior is pretty bad into the Flyer stat lines. But we don't have any other options in blue, so we just run 2 copies of this for extra swarm. It doesn't trade efficiently, but it's just an extra body we can get to stick onto the board in combination with other blue creatures. And the Archon is actually exceptionally good in this matchup, even though it is the exact same stat line as the Warrior. But once this ability procs, it's a 4-cost 6/6, so it's basically a Tide Lord, but for 1 cost cheaper, which is really strong. And that sort of counter to the Tide Lord that I mentioned, where they could throw a 3-cost creature in, plus the Spirit Theft, is not as efficient here. They've got to spend 2 cards still, and they're spending 4 Faeria for it, and you're only spending 4, and actually only 1 card this time. Well, okay, you gotta spend the 7 costs, but this is more of a late game piece.
Since I haven't played this deck that much, I have tried it some time ago. Let's switch roles, where I am talking about some not so good aspects about this deck, and you can reply.
Sure.
One thing I immediately see is that this is more expensive. You don't have Mochi, you don't have Heralds, so we were talking about cars that are expensive already at 4 Faeria. You can imagine that you might sit with wardens and phantasms and Beru in your hand, and you might not be able to play them. That's one. And the second point, Commander and Archon, while they are very great cards, sometimes they struggle with the core blue package because you might not have straight lines, straight lands.
Mm-hmm.
And second, Commander may hit may not dash nicely until it's procced because of the restriction that it has to only be on X. Perhaps you touch on these 2 points.
Yeah, so I'll touch on your first point there of the expense of the list, because that is good to point out. Unlike the other list, we've got 3 7 costs, which isn't actually that bad. 3 7 costs as opposed to, I suppose, the Tide Lords, so we're a little bit more expensive on that side. But one thing that we make up for in this is, again, because of the swarm we're running, it's very likely we're going to have creatures to stick to the board, so we're on average going to be getting more collections than, say, a standard blue that may be getting Soul Drained or Cypher's Wrath or something. You're fighting back and forth with your opponent, trying to keep board presence. With Swarm, you're able to collect a little bit more, and it's only a little bit, but we are also not going to be running too many 7s. If you are running a pure 7s list with like a lot of phantasms or something and wardens and all of these other expensive things, then yeah, Spring Mochi can be a good include. Windfall can be a good include sometimes too. But yeah, in this, we're just going a little bit and we can make up for that cost with the Swarm package. And then your second point about the awkward line placements. We shouldn't have too many awkward line placements in this list because we only have the one Sunken Tower. We're not running Prophet of Tides. The one awkward bit comes with the Commander, where you've got, if you're going second with the Explorer, sometimes you want to Lake Center, Explore Lake onto the well, and suddenly you have this blockage where you can't charge past. But you don't normally need to invest that Explorer. And if you do, there's a lot of decisions to make. And you actually have a lot of options with starting creatures as well, as I mentioned, 12. So if you're in a particular matchup where you know you're going second, or any other scenario where you think you might want to invest that Explorer early, you could just toss this Commander in the early game if you want. Typically, I think you'd want to keep this, though, to try and proc this as soon as possible. And Aquatic is very strong in the early game, less strong as the game goes on. One thing that's really...
Especially if you go opposite side, Aquatic is amazing.
Yeah, and that's one thing that makes this card really insane is if you're fighting your opponent's side, or if your opponent fights you, not a lot of decks have the same flexibility as blue does to switch sides. Like Mono Green, for example, if they invest a lot into one side, they kind of are forced to go down that one side. Same with Mono Red even. Mono Red mid-range maybe. It's a lot more difficult to switch sides with their creatures, and so sometimes this guy can just be a double collector that your opponent can't even contest. And now one downside to this also is that it's a 3 cost. 4/2, same issue as the Prophet of Tides, where it can get Soul Drain blasted for really efficient. And that's something that you just kind of have to accept sometimes. But the charge 2 potential and the Aquatic represent a lot. This also can represent something similar to what happens in the Flyers package, where you've got like a 5/3 Emissary. This creature has high attack and low life, just like the Flyers do, but it's got that charge 2 on top of it. When this procs, I wouldn't always consider the procking as a plus. This is more a bonus, I would consider. Usually, something like this, you want to just consider the raw stat lines. But if it does proc, you're charge 2 Emissary, which is absolutely insane. But yeah, the base stats are pretty exceptional as it is. The Aquatic and charge 2 represents a lot in the early game. Go ahead.
One last thing would be sometimes you might not be able to play the Warden and the Phantasm aggressive, simply because of the lands or something. So you want to take a line, but you don't have a good aggressive spot for the Phantasm and Warden. Would be a bit harder to get these back into the action, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
so with the Phantasm, it's not really it doesn't matter too much. The Phantasm's kind of a one-of niche pick in case you
Yeah,
need
one
to
of.
get a surprise value trade with a buff, or if you want a transform on something really large like a Firebringer, you can also use Phantasm for that. And the Warden itself is really exceptional into flyers, actually. We talked about that 6 HP threshold briefly with Tide Lord and also with the Archon. This also fits that 6 HP threshold. And that threshold being you're just fighting the common stat lines of flyers that are 5 attack. But then it also gives protection, which allows you to save 5 HP on one of your other creatures. Now that doesn't always matter with your swarmy guys, but it can with something like another Warden or even Triton Warrior, you're saving 4 damage on it. So that protection goes a long way in this sort of matchup. As well, you've got just the perfect stat line to fight flyers. So Warden is one of the most exceptional cards at countering flyers.
I agree. Against flyers, this is definitely the better deck to choose between this one and the previous one.
And that all comes down to your, well, in a tournament at least, your lineup building and what you're looking to counter in your particular lineup or list. Because sometimes you want a hard counter to flyers, something like this, but sometimes you might not need it as much. Maybe you want to expand your niche towards countering other archetypes.
What I like about this deck is it's not going to 4 lakes. That's something that can matter because sometimes I have to invest in lands instead of +1 or draw, right, to get the Tide Lord on. But this one doesn't have any 4 land card. And the second, so that's the of course, and the advantages of the cards against the flyers, but also a surprise Phantasm. We all know how devastating that could be. But so don't get me wrong, I really like this deck. But I wonder if you're like me and you want to bring more than one blue deck to the lineup. Because this one already has 7 cards and blue jump cards, it would be hard to make 2 decks. Most of the time I have separate blue jump and separate blue 7s to follow the Crucible rules.
Yeah, that would definitely be a challenge.
But I don't think that's a disadvantage for the majority of others.
And to build on that point you made, and something Lizard mentioned in chat, the low land requirement also means we get access to our power wheel a lot sooner, which means we can +1 to afford these more expensive cards as well. So I mentioned drawing to draw into the swarm creatures, but we can also take the +1 option instead for their expensive things.
Yeah,
and because
that's really good about that.
Yeah, and this is something to consider in deck building also. The majority of our list is playing on 2 lakes, which means our list can survive the early game with only 2 lakes for the majority. And our most expensive cards are 3 lakes, but we don't need to build this 3 lake for a long time in the game because we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards actually in this entire list that are 3 lakes. So we might even get away with not building that 3rd lake for the entirety of the match sometimes. So that's one thing that's really cool when you deck build like this. If you build like, I know a mono blue jump may not have this option, but if there was options to build a lot more 3 lake cards, then you wouldn't have that same sort of ability with the power wheel where you could save it and +1 and draw in the early game so much. You would probably be more pressed into playing that 3rd lake early. Yeah. So that's something that's really cool with deck building, not just for blue, but keeping in mind for other colors as well. And the curve is another thing to consider too, as Super Blizzard mentioned. On turn 2, you can already drop 2 creatures if you've got 2 3-drops in hand, and the commander does feed into that. So keeping in mind those thresholds is really cool too. You can drop a commander and trainer turn 2, and the more 3 costs you include in your list, the more likely you have this type of opener. So I mean, you could even make an argument for Prophet of Tides, I don't know, I wouldn't, but hey, that's a cool opener.
I mean, it's a similar situation. I can also have an amazing start where I'm in triple collection from turn 2. So, but right. I guess here it's much easier because you're not going into the plan of fighting the opponent so early on.
You have to build up a little bit as well because you are going for the swarm game plan. You're not really pressured into being going for tempo plays. You really want to build up your board. And so yeah, the swarm helps with that. We also have the option to go for 2 4 costs if we're the second player, because on turn 2 we have 8 Faeria to work with the Explorer, which is another cool combo we can make with something like Archon plus Warrior. So really cool that we have 2 starting creatures, a lot of potential for 2 starting creatures, and also because we've got 12 starting creatures, we have more flexibility in being able to mulligan away some of them in favor maybe of getting these combos. Like maybe we've got trainer plus warrior in our opening hand. We might decide that we want to toss the warrior in hopes of getting into the commander. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. My deck has less starting creatures, so sometimes you don't want to keep the Sunken Tower or often the Myth Maker. Simply because you want the starting creatures like a Prophet, Battletoads, Warrior, and so on. So yeah, that's definitely an advantage to having more creatures. I think I'm going more into tricks with the Frogophies, stuff like that. But both lists actually serve different purposes. Like I mentioned at the beginning, the list that you showed, the version you showed, wasn't actually meant to fight flyers. If I was going to do that, I would also add the trainers, obviously.
Yeah, as you mentioned there. And yeah, you just brought up the tricks as well. You'll notice that we only have 2 copies of Humbling Vision in this and 0 copies of Frogify. And the reason for that is because, well, Frogify and Humbling both are awful into flyers. Again, because the buildup of their deck is 5-3 stat lines, 5-2.
Yeah, but if you go into flyers, I would remove one Humbling for the 2 volleys that I mentioned to you on Discord.
If you want a hard counter, flyers volley can definitely do some more work. This list is built to both fight flyers and not completely crumble to other archetypes as well. And Lizard actually mentioned that this is not a hard counter to flyers. It's only going to be decent. So Lizard mentioned this is a 50-50 in his opinion. I figured this would be more like 60-40 or 70-30 even. Well, maybe 60-40.
No. It's never 70-30.
Yeah, no, I would say 60-40. Just because of some of the things you have going on, but I haven't played this list a lot. This is Lizard's list, so he might know better than anyways. And also considering that if saying 50-50 is the matchup there, you can already see how devastating like yellow is for blue. Because even like teching super hard for it is really hard. But yeah, the volleys could be a consideration if you really want. Yeah, and so Humbling Vision, really the only purpose for this in the Flyers matchup is for Champion, right? It's decent into Champion. You deal 3 damage to it. Well, give it -3/-3. It's still not amazing because the Champion generally can be out of range, and then it still is a 2/2 charge 5 flyer, which is very threatening.
Exactly.
So, Humbling Vision, you really don't want to draw into this in the Flyers matchup at all if you can avoid it. Maybe like a really clutch top deck into a champion clear or something, but yeah, we want to minimize the chances that we have of drawing into things like Humbling and Frogify into that matchup, so we don't want as many copies.
I have to mention that although Frogify is expensive, one tiny advantage over Humbling is that if the creature was on the ocean, it will die at the end of the turn if the opponent doesn't have lands near them, or it makes the opponent build double neutrals in order to save the frog.
Yeah, and it's good to note also that the 2/2 can still jump if it's on the ocean, so you have to make sure that if you're going for that play that it's far away from the coast. If you force your opponent to build extra lands, that's pretty decent. Building lands is always bad in this game.
Like sometimes it hits and then the creature dies. Could happen.
Depends on the
hits into the orb and then it dies.
Yeah. And it has to jump onto a land, otherwise it can't jump anywhere. Manta Rider still a some unit to fight for
a game, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's really hard to fight Manta Rider. Honestly, as any color.
Yeah, Manta Rider is tough. Sometimes I Frogify Manta Rider, but like every time I do it, I regret it. But on the moment, on the spot, I don't see anything better.
Because you're spending 4 Faeria to deal 3 damage, essentially, with the Frogify. And yeah, I mean, a Manta is maybe like ever so slightly better than a Toad, but you're basically just dealing 3 damage, which hurts. And 4 land cost to the 3 land. Insane that this card used to have charge 2 naturally. Like, that was nuts. I ranked this as an A tier card in my tier list. This might even be S tier, I don't know. It's like borderline.
Yeah, if you don't have Grizzly, it's hard to get an efficient trade on this card.
Yeah, definitely.
I have a question to better deck builders than myself. Why has the creation not secured a spot in the blue jump lists that I've seen? It used to be in the older lists where Gyarados maybe was a splash of one splash, and then you could have creation just in case you could do a double Gyarados, but also creation on the Colossus, on the Aurora, and so on. But in recent years, I've not seen people run creation. I wonder why.
So this card is just expensive, and it fits a very particular niche as well. This you want a really slow, greedy deck for, to get the value of, both because this is a combo piece, it requires 2 cards, so you need time to build up those cards. But also 5 is a very expensive number in Faeria. This might not be apparent to new deck builders as well. Number of thresholds are really difficult for new players to figure out. But 5 is an expensive number, so you really need to be getting some good value for this. But not only that, sometimes you just don't have the room in a list to make room for this expense. And
I think that's the key thing. I just don't have a slot open for it most of the time.
Yeah, 3 lakes is another big hindrance as well. Yeah, land costs are always something to pay attention to. I've mentioned in like basic deck building guides in the past where you want to play to your maximum land count, which is like 4 Frogifies, and then so you might think, okay, I'm free to include anything that's 4 cost or below, but there's a lot of nuances to that in considering what stage of the game you'll be able to play cards like this. 4 lake is your maximum threshold, sure, but this is your absolute late game, and then 3 lakes is going to be nearing the late game as well. So you want to be careful about those numbers as well. per card, that's basically win more. Yeah. So you'll see lists. I actually might even have a list built for this. Was it in this one? Yeah, so a greedier list with a game plan that is built around greed and building up really good value, you can run creation in a deck like this, and it's actually solid. You also need targets for this, and the fact that this is a 5-cost card, discount by 5, you're going to also want probably 5-cost and greater cards, which is adding again to the expense of your list. So something like a 7s list works decently well, where you have ramp cards or Faeria generation cards like Windfall and Spring Mochi. It can work just to make up for the expense of both this card and the card you're creating. And this is really good into legendaries as well. You mentioned Garrotin. So you can create Garrotin if you want. Great into Beirut, because Beirut is a pretty solid card. And other legendaries, creation's pretty solid into. It's also nice as a flex pick into flex cards like Phantasm. Maybe you've got one Phantasm on the board and you just need that extra transform in the match. Creation can be a flexible card for that, but again, it's just really expensive. So you have to, it has to fit in the right deck.
And for those that have, let's say, a sway when talking with Abracam, I would really wish for Christmas that the Forbidden Library is 4 lakes. Because I've always wanted to experiment with Forbidden Library in Jump and 7s.
So you probably weren't around when this was like, what was it, 3 lakes?
No, I was not.
Oh, that's okay. That's sad. This was a pretty fun meta. It was a really strong card back then. But I think this used to be either 2 or 3 lakes. I think it was 3. I could be wrong. They hard nerfed this into 5. But this was just really devastating because you could pair this with Dreamweaver and Radiance, and Dreamweaver had the option to like heal yourself. And you just got absurd value with this. Oh, and it used to be, didn't it used to be, it was draw a card and gain 2. Yeah, that was the other thing too. So they completely destroyed this card. Just made it 5 lakes and reduced the Faeria gain to 1 instead of 2, which is insane. Land count also varies heavily depending on the archetype. Yeah, very true too. A mid-range list is more starved for draw and needs every card to have an impact. In control, you can more comfortably set up special lands while maintaining own well collection. Yeah, mid-range requires, in mid-range you're also trying to fight other creatures, right? So you're pressured into building those aggressive lands, as well as that power wheel is being contested for the draw and +1 options. And in a slower greed or control list, yeah, you have the option to just go for the 4 lands adjacent to your well, so you can just afford to build those special lands more comfortably. Also meaning you have more access to greedier lands like Creation, Frogify, Beirut, things like that. Okay, do you want to get into some games?
Yes, I want to get into some games. Perhaps with Prophet, I was thinking maybe Flood one would be a choice, because most of the time the Prophet dies, right? But I've tried it, and it just isn't that great. And lastly, I want to address the card Triton Tactician, because it seems that we are running a lot of Tritons, right? So you would think it would have a lot of synergy, and it's also very good against the red because it has 4 life. But what I've noticed is that the usual optimal lands of Blue Jump, with one at the enemy, one well, one at your well, and one in front of your well, and one at the enemy orb, it just doesn't give you the opportunity to have other Tritons surrounding this tactician. At best, you could, like, going first, you usually tend to do adjacent lakes if you're going first. Maybe then tactician would be possible, but other than that, even though the trainer is having less life, I would still prefer the trainer. I just wanted to touch on this card because it, it's a good card, like Triton jump, and it's it's only 3 cost, but the 2 attack is the one that makes it bad or makes it not as good.
Yeah, that's a good one to point out. Yeah, and even if you want this, like, this would probably be okay at a 3-4 stat line, but this is easier said than done, getting an adjacent friendly Triton, because you're giving up potentially good positioning in favor of trying to get even one buff on this card. And, well, not only the positioning, but also sometimes you just might not have any Tritons on board at the time, and so you've got to invest into a Triton first, try and get it to stick, and then play this card. On paper, it looks decent, but in practice, this card just is horrible. It's okay if you get it from a spell world, but...
sorry, Moon. Because it relies on other creatures being already present, it is not an early card that you want to take advantage of. Maybe it works. Maybe it has synergies with Tide Lords, because Tide Lords can be put on other lands. So then you can put this one adjacent, or maybe with Ninja. But at that point in the curve, you do not want to play a 3/4.
Yeah, very good point. At that point in the game, you're on 4 lakes, you're in the late game, and you want big things and big value, and this is just not big value.
I think you are muted.
Am I muted?
Oh, never. Okay,
no,
never
the YouTube just paused.
All right, so that's all the points I wanted to bring. I guess who wants to go first, you or me?
So we'll let you go first if you want.
Okay.
We'll let the master work. Best I can think is
now,
3 lakes.
The worst case possible is that I lose 2 games, but let's see. At least the process of thinking is what matters here.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go into a game.
Yeah, let me know when you're in a game. I'm gonna put the deck list on screen. So when did you start Faeria? Do you remember what sort of expansion you started?
I do, around 2018.
2018, okay. Do you remember what expansion was out back then?
I do not know. Probably the Tree of Everlife. Sorry, I forgot the name.
Tree of Everlife, yeah. The big tree.
Okay. We got a game against no other than Bamster.
Instantly counter cues with mechs. Get countered. And of course we got the classic Sesh opening with Prophet. 1 of 2 picks.
You're already in the game?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. So Bamster in the chat really putting me to work for the advices that I gave. When you have a situation of starting Elemental or Prophet, I prefer to start with Prophet, not simply because of the bias, but because of better lands after that.
Yeah, I can see that. Another thing also is, in the early game, you're at a point in the game where it's the least likely your opponent has Soul Drains in hand. So it might be good to get the Prophet positioning.
Although Moon, I think at some point my opponents are keeping Soul Drain just because they know I have this.
Perhaps.
I don't know.
Ooh, get blocked though. Okay. So that's pretty unfortunate. The command pickup might actually be pretty clean here.
So yeah, command is 1. The question is if you want to build a lake underneath the creature now when it has flying and not afterwards.
Good point. Yeah, you cannot build lands under a land creature, but you can build it under flying creatures. So, good game knowledge there, Sesh. So walk me through the thought process here.
So I'm thinking of switching side maybe. Because I'm okay if that creature survives.
One cool thing even, Drake Rider left is not terrible.
Exactly.
On the other hand, your opponent did play Merchant, might have picked a Royal Judge. So that's another thing to
thinking of
consider.
still going same side, simply because I'm playing against the yellow, so it's maybe a bit too soon to change side.
Okay. I think Exalted Ogre would cause more impact here. Yeah, so I was considering the double neutral left side, set up the Drake Rider. You're contesting double collection and threatening the Merchant, which I think is pretty cool. That Soul Drain hurts. But yeah, this is super weak to Royal Judge. Of course, the Ogre is also weak to Royal Judge. Yeah, so now the Ogre can step back if there's no Royal Judge. We can step into double collection here. And we have an aggressive
but that was that was an amazing opener from Dancer. Not only giving me cards that I don't want to play, but also practically double collecting with the 0/1.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm a little bit concerned about with this 5/5 is it's a bit expensive. We're not playing the cards we want to play. And another thing to consider in the Husk matchup is since you have so many cards to play, instead of thinking about playing every card in hand, we want to think about playing the best cards we have in hand. We might even not want to play this Water Ellie unless the stat line might be good on board or that the lake's important. I'm also concerned with the double neutral. This is just thinking in hindsight as well. Because we are against Husk, we're really wanting Faeria collections.
Right. I want to explain why I want to. At least this is my my way of playing. I want to keep a bit of pressure on the side before I switch, and the 5/5 also allowed us to collect to discount the Colossus. So you also have to keep in mind that Colossus is coming and don't want to have it as an 8 cost.
Yeah, definitely. Now that we've seen the tow ship in hindsight, though, also, I would have much preferred the Drake Rider left, I think, because we can still collect off the well. But then we would have lost pressure on right side, which is unfortunate.
I think exactly. That's the point. I usually want to keep pressure on that side for a bit before switching. That's, I think, my main point. Of course, he can have another Soul Drain, and there's nothing I can do, but...
perhaps this tow ship could have blocked our Drake Rider also. That would have been pretty unfortunate. So sure, maybe Drake Rider not as good. He could have built a desert up here on C5 and dashed, and then still collected, and that would have actually been pretty horrible for us. The Psycho line would be neutral D4. Set up the face hit. Ooh, okay, nothing from our opponent is really cool here. We actually get to set up some stuff now.
And here's the Colossus that I mentioned. It's already a 6 cost now, so that was my main point about this line.
Yeah, very cool.
So now the question is if we do invest the elemental or not. Now that we have 2 creatures on the right side, the advantage of elemental would be that I can make a lake next to the left well. Um, of course, the frog is a bit bad against the merchant, so I might want to put it on B1 instead of B2. The only problem is that elemental is expensive. And then the question is, what do I do with the other lake? And I'm going to do something very strange. I'm going to put both lakes on that side because I'm preparing for the Tide Lord, and now we are going to fight. We are going to start fighting on the other side as well, assuming that these two creatures are enough on the right side. I want to now apply pressure on the left side as well.
All right, so here's my thought
process. And now
process.
I have all the land.
Yeah, so my thought process about this turn, Water Alley, like you mentioned, is very expensive. I would almost consider not even building towards Tide Lord, just because Tide Lord itself is also very expensive. And in the Husk matchup, we really want to be concerned with what we're spending our Faeria on. I think in this position, and also the 2-2 very vulnerable to a movement trick here. I think in this position I might have ran away with this frog and just set up more Battletoads. I think we had the lands for this.
I mean, we are going to be okay on Faeria if we also survive with double collection on the right and put another set of Battletoads for swarming. Of course, the Husk is going to be a problem at some point.
I mean, okay with Faeria collections is, like, against Husk, you can be okay with being able to play stuff on board, but we really want to just utilize all this extra card draw we get from the Husk player.
Which I can, because now I can +1 Moon from now on, if I need to. Now that I have the lands. Yeah, all the lands that I need.
Yeah, the plan is to +1 here. The other issue, though, we also lose our Mystic Beast spot here. Mystic Beast is a pretty good card in this matchup.
I know, but I only run 2 Mystic Beasts. I only run 2 of them. So here's the Tide Lord. So we are according to plan.
We found the Tide Lord. It's really bad here, though. We might...
No, not really.
Want to put it on the left side.
I wanted to put it on the left side from the beginning. Remember, the plan was to follow up with Battletoads and then Tide Lord to contest also the right side. Sorry, the left side. And +1.
Sure. Alright. We're looking good. Bamster on 14 Faeria, though, but I know this list from Bamster, and I don't think he's got the deck weight to support that.
He may have a ton of Faeria, but he only has, for the moment, 2 cards or 3. Of course, I have to constantly enforce the right side to not lose it. That's the trick. But dealing with his double collector, with this Tide Lord, which we have because of the elemental, so dealing with removing his double collector may not help now because he has 17 Faeria, but may help in the future. And also Colossus is almost ready. That's another thing. Once I get an aggressive land, it's Colossus.
Yeah, so Lizard mentioned Champion deletes the left side on that one turn, which, yeah, I agree with. I think that one turn was very sketchy, where we had the 2-2 in range of the 3-3 with mobility trick, and we could have lost on the spot there. But it looks like we're in a good spot now.
And not necessarily. I'm running 3 Empress commands, but yeah, it was tricky that turn.
Ooh.
Okay, here's the value trade, but we have the ninja in case he has I don't know, like that.
Okay,
but he's really pulling all the, like, Husk is annoying because I'm burning a card and I'm already burning a ninja as well.
Yeah, the card burn doesn't matter so much. Against Husk, we just want to look at what we have in hand to work with. and just work with that. And we already have a ninja in hand. I don't think the burn really matters. But now here we want to be very careful and selective of what we're spending our Faeria on. Since we're in this position.
That's true. I think I just go Colossus, to
and
be
there's
honest.
a huge issue here where we now have to build a land to fight the 3-3, and Bamster knows it. He just steps the 3-3 up in range because he doesn't need to care. This is just really expensive for us.
I think what I'm going to do is play the Colossus, because that allows me to maintain collection for as long.
Yeah, we'll need a double neutral, I guess. One on right side just to send these toads off, and then one on left side, I suppose.
I'm thinking both on the left side, so I can start quad collecting. Collecting also from that side and killing some of the husks. Of course, that means I make yet again lands.
Well, we don't need to invest both left side, right? Because we can invest both next turn. We're investing one left side, right? But we need some fighting potential for right side here, because these 2-2s are...
I still think this is better.
Alright. Because the issue with this line is now we've again played into champion, where this is a really good champion line for our opponent. Yeah, so my line was to build the neutral right next to the Colossus. We sidestep the 2-2, play out of range of the 3-3. Because I don't think the 6-3 needs to be here. Like I mentioned, we already were in a double collection spot, just if we're on the well here. And then we can send the 2-2 to right side to have more fighting potential for all this swarm Bamsters laying down. Because we want this Colossus to be able to collect, and this balloonfish is just kind of annoying here.
He is putting absolutely all the MIs and all the tellers.
It's a champion. Oh, I guess no champion. But now, we also still could have had that double collecting Tide Lord, right? We might fall a little bit behind.
We have Ninja. We have a Ninja now.
Yeah, it's just not ideal to play Ninja because it's really expensive. But we would...
I mean, to be honest, the amount of... I'm not sure how to say this, but he absolutely had all the cards, like...
it's absolutely fine. I think we were in a really good spot, but I think we made a couple misplays, but that's okay. Here, though, we can try to contest left side as much as possible. We're also in a position now where Bamster's maybe going low down in card count, and we can save healing tools.
The only question is, what do I put on the left upper?
Well, we preserve the 6-3, right? So we steb the 6-3 backwards, and then we ninja toads.
I'm thinking brute, maybe?
Save the brutes. What? Yeah, we just want battle toads on board here.
But I need something in collection as well.
Our 6-3 is fine. So we step the 6-3 back. We put Lake aggressive.
Yes, I know. I'm talking about the other collection up top.
On left side?
Yeah.
We don't need anything here. We could if we want.
I think we do. We can do this line.
But we don't want to play anything in range of the 5-2, right? Ugh, that's extremely expensive. I don't like that. So
yeah.
My question here is, why do we need the 3-6 on the left?
Because it has 6 life, and
sure, but we're playing in trade range. We didn't need to, right? We even could have played it on the neutral if we wanted to. We have seen triple Soul Drain, but Spirit Theft still exists. And this is just a really garbage stat line. Like, he's gonna be able to
not
trade.
against the 5-2.
Well, when it costs us 5, it's pretty garbage.
Okay.
Because he's gonna spend 4 to kill this. and then
the idea is that I want to maintain triple collection. That's my whole idea for this plan.
Yeah, but we can do that still with the Battletoads, right? And the Battletoads fights the stat line so efficiently. Like, even if we put the 2-2 in trade range, that was fine. If we want to preserve the 6-3 going forwards. Because we've seen... I think we've even seen triple
I am
Soul
going
Drain.
to play Battletoads next turn, Moon. The thing with the Battletoads, the problem with the Battletoads, is that one Toad is misplaced. One is good, and then the other is misplaced defensive.
Wouldn't... So, we just want things to stick on this board. We don't really care about... it's not really misplaced if we're still nabbing a collection, right? All we want is to maintain our collections and maintain board presence. Ugh. Yucky. Yeah. So, we lose our... See, if we had Battletoads, we would have had the collection, right? It's all about just having stickiness to the board. So that hurts a little bit. And yeah, Battletoads next turn is what you were... Battletoads next turn is what you were talking about, and we really want the impactful cards coming down as soon as possible. I also wouldn't have hit that. Just because Bamster's on 5 cards, and we no longer have a win condition. And we really want Fatigue to be our win condition now.
I don't think... I think he must be running... what's that card?
Bannon? No. I mean, if Bamster's running Bannon, we lose on the spot. Because we're not coming back in this game. We literally need Fatigue as our win condition now. Yeah, we just pass like this.
Yeah, I was thinking of playing... I was just counting if we have enough area for next turn. I mean, he still has to build the land in order to trade the route.
Yeah, I don't think he cares too much, though. Because at this position, he doesn't want to draw anymore. He does want a +1, but... Yeah, I mean, he probably... Can he clear the Colossus here? Not quite. Well, he's definitely got more champions, so... You don't want to hit champion into that, though. Probably he just actually... Oh, yeah, this is huge. So the land is huge for him here. Really? Because if he goes... Wow, going for the value trade.
That one has charged 3.
So if he went the value trade, he could have collected, played a second champion, and value traded the Toad. Which is just massive. A massive swing. This works too, I guess, but it's kind of weak to command. Because like the 3-6 stat line doesn't really matter. I don't know. If you're taking 11 or not. Yeah, that would have worked too if he had just hit face there. That would have been pretty big. But didn't go for that. Goes for the value trade. I don't know, because he has to have 2 champions in hand here. But yeah, now we just surrender.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah, Husk is a tricky match to pilot, but there's some really subtle plays.
Have to be 1 second. I need a bit of test charge. Maybe something like that.
Right, so we lose if we don't deal with the 6-3 or block or something. Yeah, we use the Colossus, sure.
So something like that is what I thought. And then I can trade the husk with the profit and hit with the boar.
Yeah.
And then of course I can enforce the right side again with maybe a warrior or maybe Drake Rider or something like that.
I think Bamster misplayed a little bit also though by not playing the champions earlier. Which is a similar thing that we did on our side. Saving the good cards until later is not really the best plan, at least in this sort of matchup, and how the pacing is going, because the sooner the good cards come down, the more snowball impact they have on the game. So Bamster not playing that champion means he's gonna be missing out on the free face hit here.
And remember his 17 Faeria? Well, he's down to 6 now.
Yeah, he managed to spend it all. Merchant being an 8-cost card can help with that.
I want to actually value trade if possible, but he used the champion.
Well, you can safely play around champions, right? You know that he's got 3 copies of this, and he's got no cards left in deck, so there's a guaranteed another champion coming next turn.
I want to play the Mystic Beast and the Humbling next turn. I mean this turn, sorry. The only problem is he will go aggressive with the champion and my Wave Crush Colossus will die, but he goes with a 2-2. So I think this is the line, but so now the question is, I could actually move the 7-2 so that it doesn't die from the balloon fish.
I mean, you're just gonna
do that.
You're just gonna play a champion. Doesn't matter too much, but sure, you could block your face as well.
But then I rather him do that. I think because now it just dies.
Yeah, moving the Colossus also blocks your face from the 2-2. Bamster's in a spot now where he... I don't know, I guess he just loses. He just didn't play the champion. So I guess we do win after all.
It's still anyone's match. Yeah, it's still not...
he is not gonna Radiance. There's no reason to run Radiance in this type of list.
I'm more afraid of the other card, the
Banana.
5/5/7 cost. But actually, some people do run Radiance in this type of list as well. But actually, can you remind me again, because I don't play it, what's that 5/5/7 cost that gives you Radiance plus Bannon? Bannon would be the choice because Bannon then also gives you Radiance. I'm just praying that he doesn't have Bannon, because otherwise, like you said, there was no chance.
Yeah.
Because then the swing is too much.
I don't imagine
we
he
do
has
have
Bannon,
a Progify for racing purposes, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, he missed his window to play the champion, and now he just can't win anymore. He doesn't have enough stuff. I guess if he plays like a Demon Wing at aggro...
I do have one more Sunken Tower, so I can move it away. It's champion.
What? So we kill our 3-1 off and put the 5/5 in trade range. Excuse me.
This is why I moved. This is why I moved the Colossus, because I knew the 3-1 would die. Unless he makes land.
Why, Bamster?
Call me crazy, So now we have a few lines. We have a Frogify line, we have an Aurora line, we have a control line, like stepping back. We have a few options, but we are also very low on life.
We just want stuff back to defend. Probably Frogify
Probably
the
I hit
champion.
face.
Yeah, you can hit
so.
face.
I deal with the champion, and then I hit face.
Yeah, is it the Frogify or the Aurora? I don't know if the 1/1 body matters. I mean, we could... We can't really do anything to this 1/1. I guess we can pair it with a command.
I like the Aurora much better because I get
well,
to
Frogify
collect.
lets you value trade twice.
Do you think he has a spirit theft remaining?
Sure, I guess Aurora. He hasn't played Spirit Theft yet, so I wouldn't assume.
Exactly.
There's a really
Even
good opportunity for it, and he didn't play it, so...
I wanted to say, even though it's heartbreaking to play Aurora on a 4/5, I do need the Faeria next turn to do something big.
Okay,
like Frogify, for example.
Oh no, you have Frogify still. Oh, fantastic.
Oh my gosh. That was like his last out. This is the thing that I hate about treasures. It just pulls a treasure out of nowhere that is just happening to be lethal. A random treasure that happens to be lethal.
Yeah, no one likes treasures.
But that was at some point, Moon, you practically said I was completely dead, but it wasn't the case.
Well, if Bamser played optimally, you were dead there. But
okay.
Yeah,
let's try another
a little bit.
Let's try another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of sucks a bit, the way that ended. But yeah, such is life. Such is the RNG.
Husk is a really tricky one to play around. You really have to play against that match a lot to figure out the I don't know, the intricacies to beating it. Because the unfortunate thing about Husk is you gotta completely switch your game plan. You can't go for your usual game plan anymore. Just because the Husk player has suddenly switched to giving you like absurd amount of cards, and so you really have to think differently about the value each card you have is.
I understand, but the 3/6 actually did its job.
It collected 3/6 in my opinion was pretty bad. Still,
but Moon, it collected 3 times. It killed the Husk, and then it killed the 6/3 that could have gone face or close to face.
Yes, but for one, the Husk was a win condition for us potentially.
No, I mean, no, the fatigue. We were nowhere near winning the fatigue.
I think we would have been with 2 Husks on boards and healing in the bank, but we also just could have spent our Faeria on something more impactful for 5. For example, Battletoads. They could have taken out the 5/2. He did end up trading, but we could have had a double collector with the Battletoads. I just think we would have gotten more value out of it.
Okay. I don't know. I disagree, but let's move on.
Fair enough.
Because the Battletoad is fragile, and with the champion, and he could do some other trades, drain.
Well, it's fragile, but he used 3 drains there. We saw 3 drains. And just Swarm.
Okay, now I have the.
But we
now
have
I have the
double.
But then we are rushed. Just my luck. Just my luck. I guess I can show you the tip of the diamond.
Well, you would have had to explore there if you wanted to do that play, right? Because now he's just gonna double.
No.
Oh, okay. He's not gonna double neutral. Okay.
Like, I wanted, of course, to go with my usual plan, but against Rush, I cannot.
Well, here's the thing. A normal Rush player would double neutral here, and you wouldn't get this play that you were hoping for. But I guess I've lost touch with modern Faeria ranked ladder. Double profit poggers. This is a cool opening though.
So now we might just go for the aggressive Prophet of Tides, or I mean, we can do both. I hope I'm not playing into AoE, but maybe I shouldn't invest the Battletoads because of Garridan. But like, please,
there's no way there's a Garridan. If there's a Garridan, I'm quitting Faeria.
You never know, because this is ladder. It can happen. But okay, I'm going to play.
If there's a Garridan, I'm ending my YouTube channel right now. For I have failed. Oh my god, it's Garridan.
No, it's not. Whew. Yeah, my opponent has a lot of wraths, apparently, today. And drains, but we continue. Now we are on...
Oh, we're shy of Tide Lord, huh?
No.
Well, Tide Lord plus command. We're forced to command here.
No. I rather put Tide Lord and just
really
go like that.
Brave.
Yeah.
Very brave.
Because I feel more safe with the Tide Lord on board.
And you feel more safe getting whacked for 2?
Plus, Moon, I need a command for the healing.
I don't know.
He has a third.
I don't know about that.
No, okay. That's just insane, but okay, let's take this trade, or maybe the other trade.
If we attest a bit of brain to our opponent, we wouldn't have seen the Wrath last turn if he had Gary. True. Leaving him... Wait, we really don't want this guy to survive. Right? Why are we keeping this guy alive so long? Oof.
Let's explode together.
Well, I am going to kill it with a Ninja Toad, but
this guy has collected 3 times. Insane.
We have the ninja next turn, so I think it's okay.
Let's explode together, then only you explode. Yeah, that Brigand was very good.
Can be only one.
6 mountains. Oh my god. Third bomb slinger.
I mean, the reason I go for these lines is that when Colossus comes, it's already 4. But, yeah, it takes a while for the card to appear.
It's gonna be another Brigand.
it's a brigand. If it's okay, but I hope it's not something bigger.
I don't know. Anything here sucks.
I mean, depending where he puts it, ideally I want to collect above, but he's going to block the access to Cipher, so I would have to use the ninja.
Oh. That's actually not bad. We can humble.
That's not bad. So I can use the humbling and the heal.
We don't even need to heal here. I probably wouldn't heal here. We've seen... Oh, he can't even kill us anyways. He doesn't have enough. Yeah.
He's on 0 Faeria.
Yeah, so Warwick mentioned we've got 3 Emperor's commands coming, but if we don't collect very much, these are going to be garbage, so... But
I have collected constantly.
Well, I just mean we gotta, like, constantly be playing creatures, but we're in a decent spot now. Go summon Ground Shaker. Hey, there he is.
Alright, so this is the advantage of doing those weird collection lines instead of clearing, is to have this. Now the question is, of course, now I have to heal. That's one point.
We can double neutral here to set up that Colossus and get a collection. 2 collections, or we send the 6-1 aggressive to apply pressure, but we probably need the 6-1 to defend. So oh, what? Wait, why are we +1-ing? We could have collected off the left side and double neutral, right?
But isn't this still
well,
good?
I think we're gonna have to use the 6-1 defensively, but... What? Oh, come on, burn players, don't do this.
Yeah, but this way I set up a 2-turn lethal.
Alright, so, also, one point to note, because I'm so frustrated with this, but for new players, never Flame Burst face if you don't have a lethal, there's just no points. When Faeria is cumulative in a game like this, you just
The reason I like the line with the Tidal Lord is because I set up a 2-turn lethal instead of collecting 1 time.
Well, the 2-turn lethal's fine, I just thought you'd play something more impactful than Flame Burst face. But this is...
Now, I think I might, just in case he has...
Just go full. No, you go full face. You win here. There's no way you lose. With a Colossus aggressive, you have him on 7 HP, so he needs a heal, and then he can't play anything. He's on 5. He's on 6 Faeria here.
I mean, he does have the double Flame Burst.
Well, he can't do anything about that. We just go Colossus.
I mean, I can draw. Draw.
You could draw. Alright. If you want... he doesn't have double Flame Burst. He played 1 on a creature, and he played 1 on face. It's not...
Oh, you played 1 on a creature, right? Sorry.
That's alright. You just forgot. That's okay. Yeah, I think if double Flame Burst was an option, then that was okay to do. But yeah, that was not an option.
Okay, this X Grinder we can shift. No problem.
Well, you just win.
But I just win. Okay, well, I know it was weird with the Brigand for a while, but the advantage of going up to collect instead of down to clear was the Colossus being for life, which was the win condition.
Yeah, I'd have to disagree.
Okay. I still want to play one more. Sorry, I still want to just try to have a normal game where I'm either not rushed or not dead from the beginning.
Yeah, go for it. Brigand hitting face is really bad. Just
It
overall,
was,
but
but I didn't expect 2 times bomb slingers into two wraths plus flame burst. Otherwise,
auto
I would have
removal.
maybe cleared it.
But yeah, so the reason you don't flame burst face is because Faeria is cumulative. You can literally play that flame burst at any point in the game, and then instead of just flame bursting face, you can spend that Faeria on creatures, or if the situation changes, you could spend that Faeria on literally anything else. Flame bursting face is just really bad. Sorry. It just frustrates me so much.
I kind of want to play the game versus Bamster, matchup versus Bamster again, because I think I could have done a bit better on the land structure. Problem is, I always have some cards that require lakes, so that's why I went for the double lakes on the left side.
Yeah, so yeah, I understand the thought process there.
My wish.
But...
Bamster really wants today to show that blue jump is not that strong, huh?
Yeah, so I understand the thought process there, but in the Husk matchup, you have to be very careful. Well, I think I mentioned already, you have to be selective with the card choices. And oftentimes give up the high land cards for a while, just because they're just so absurdly expensive when you're getting fed so many cards to draw. You're almost getting towards like a neutral deck when you're drawing so many cards at once, and you don't have the lands to support it or the fairy to support it. So going for your 2-land cards as much as possible is really strong in this matchup.
Oh, wait, did he switch?
Yeah, he has switched, it looks like. We got Profit Opener, all 3 games. Beautiful. Green, blue, beasts. Tyrannax beasts. Ooh.
Interesting. Okay. Now, one small thing is it's very tempting to play Explore there because that's the plan. But it's usually better to just hold it, see what the opponent does, and then maybe you get an elemental, so you have more options with the Explore. Maybe he does something else.
This lets you double collect this guy as well.
So keep in mind, it's way better to keep the Explorer in hand in this type of opening with the Prophet. Now, if we had double Prophet, I want to show one point. You don't push the double Prophet here in B2 because you want this other Prophet to collect as much as possible. You don't want to fight with it, not very early on. So you would actually rather put it here.
On B1?
Mm-hmm. On B1, yeah.
It's Carasius?
If it's Carasius, we need a Frogify very early on.
I literally wouldn't put it past them to run Carasius with Tyrannax.
Now, I would wish he would play a bit faster because, yeah, maybe I just surrender on turn 2 so that you go in and play your side of the matches, because, I don't know, this could take a lot of time.
Well, that's okay.
Okay, so now that we have this side, the only question now is, of course, the lake goes there. The only question would be if the warrior is behind, so we can fight with the Prophet, or aggressive.
Well, I think we want to fight with the warrior, right? 4/4 style line? Jump? Seems like a better fighter.
Sometimes you do want to push this Prophet of Tides more aggressive, because otherwise it does nothing. And it's
But
still
you
not
still have that
clear,
option, right?
Moon. Let me give you an example. Let's say he stalkers. Then with the warrior, I have to jump down to collect. Now I jump up to collect. It's a much
I
better
think jumping
difference.
down is to collecting's better though, with like top deck Mystic Beast or top deck other creature. Like if you're getting stalkered here, we want to go for more passive collection lines anyways, because our board's been controlled. But with the Prophet on board here, we have the potential to be more aggressive with the warrior, which can actually jump. Because now we don't threaten this 4 space like we would with the warrior, and he's free to step up.
But but Moon, we only have Ninja Toads. We don't have enough pressure to sustain the the aggression that you are mentioning. Like I can't
It's
go
just
aggressive with the warrior if all I have is ninja as a backup. That's my.
well, it's just keeping your options open, and you're relying on a top deck of something. But like just having this threat range is really good because you restrict where your opponent can move their creatures. But it doesn't matter so much in here since Bamster just went for a swarm line. I'd like to know tips on beating Carassius. That's fair. I might... yeah, so... A lot of people struggle with Husk, a lot of people struggle with Carassius. I might make some videos in the future on countering those. I started like a countering rush series where I was gonna do a bunch of archetypes, but I put too much effort in the videos and I got discouraged, so maybe I'll just do like a chatting video on how to counter sometime.
Plus that's like every time you put a new video, I can't wait to watch it. So maybe I speak for the rest of the community. So would be great if you continue those series. In regards to the position, the Prophet has the same attack as the warrior, and if I can use the Prophet to hit for 4 after it collected and gave me the great positioning, I call that a win-win.
Well,
because
okay.
if I
It's a really minor thing, but putting the 4/4 aggressive gives you the option to have that threat range, but it also gives you the option to step back and step up the 4/2 anyways. You get the exact same positioning you have here, but with a 4/4 on the back well.
But you want the 4/2 to march aggressive. Like that's the key distinction between these two lines.
You would have had it anyways, right? Because you get to step the 4/4 off of this leg spot, and then you step the 4/2. You would have had this exact same position, right? But anyways, it's not that important. Oh my god, it's Carassius. Are you kidding? Why? Well...
Now, we could get rid of double collection, but that's a bit expensive.
No, so now that we know it's Carassius, I mean, that is an option, but...
Of course, I can wait 1 turn and Colossus.
We really want as much face damage here as possible. Since Carassius hasn't been drawn, we just need to tempo face now. Save the Frogify for the first Carassius and just hope we can tempo win before anything happens. So
I can take a value trade on the Octopus with Ninja, and then push everything.
I don't think we're pressured into playing reactive tools here. Either we lake or we double neutral. We want to be concerned of where our land placements are going. Yeah, it could just double neutral, aggressive or something. Or lake, either one's fine. Might want to pre-humble the 3/7 if we're stepping up though. I think I would have preferred stepping not in trade range. Because we lose our potentially good humbling vision here on the octopus as a reactive tool. But also the reason we don't want to go for Ninja Toad lines here, we're not pressured into doing anything. And Ninja Toad's a really good surprise tool.
But also we are not using our cards.
We don't need to.
I hate staying with the cards and doing nothing, so...
this is... Yeah, one thing that can be really good in Faeria is patience sometimes. Because especially in a matchup like this where we're against Carassius, we really need to be patient and play our cards at good windows.
I really like that the Prophet contributed to getting the shifting octopus into a value trade range. Of course, for everyone in the chat, I know that Moon is the better player, and I am struggling to explain why I go over a line versus the other. But the way this position with the octopus ended up is much better than what would have been if I put the warrior first in front of the Prophet.
Yeah, completely fair. The whole purpose of this series... Wait, oh, did he failed there? Oh, that's really unfortunate. I guess we might end up losing this then.
That's unfortunate bit.
Yeah, the whole purpose of this series is just to get other people's opinions, because it's just me talking. And everyone's got their own opinions, and I think everyone's opinions can be valid.
Let's see.
But I really like the debate discussion side of things.
Yeah, the debate is great. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm not correct about everything.
The question is if it's still worth to frogify at this stage.
I don't know what our win condition is anymore, to be honest. We just need to hit face as much times as possible. We got a lot of Faeria here, so I guess you might as well frogify. I'm not really sure, though. It doesn't accomplish anything, really.
Okay, I have a line. You will probably hate it.
You can take the creation away from your opponent by killing just deleting them. The ninja value is fine. And then, yeah, just frogify, and then it takes away creation. I like it.
Yeah, that's the line. And
you could have even pre-humbled the 4/6.
The 4/6.
Yeah, just because we really want this foothold to sustain itself here. And humbling is just a really clean answer to this. Oh boy.
Wow.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, and it would have straight up killed this Tyrannex. Which would have been pretty solid. We would have been able to hop the 4-1 over, and then we at least have a beater on this left side. It's something.
But then with the humbling, that's the entire Faeria almost.
Yeah, we're out of cards here too, though. And we really, I don't know what our answer to the Tyrannex is gonna be. Pamster the 2-time today.
I might use the ninja to just collect twice. But unfortunately the creature is divine, so I cannot humble it. Alternatively, we use but that's expensive.
We probably want to set up a creature on left side here. I think what you could do is hop the 4-1, place a lake, Ninja Toad the 4-3, and then dump a warrior on left side. And at least we've got 2 beaters on left, and this Sturdy Shell can't do anything to us because there's a forest in the way.
Yes, that's one line.
We need our 4/4s to hit, what, 5 times? Yeah. Which is a lot, but... The other option is to save the Ninja Toad and just...
In this line, the 2/2 does nothing.
Well, it's fine. We just need a tempo pressure, like I mentioned. Like, we're already losing on board, we're losing the late game because it's Carassius, so we just need tempo to win this game. The other line is to again build that lake, but just trade the 4-3 with the 4-1, but I like getting the extra hits. Because we'll lose a lot of pressure with this line. Just for one collection, that's not really purposeful. So what we went for here, this ties into that matchups video I made. We had an option to go for a tempo line here, like I said, with the Ninja Toad clear and the Triton Warrior setup. Instead we went for a control line, or somewhat of a mid-range line, where we went for a collection. And yeah, against Carassius just wins against any sort of slow plays, unfortunately.
I mean, I have enough Faeria to go aggressive. If he comes down to trade the frog, at least the 5, the Majnata, is not defending space. And if it's coming down, then I can swarm a bit there.
Yeah, I think so.
But now it's defending face.
Yeah,
so, like, I mean, going aggressive when you have a Majnata with a shield that can trade. I don't know.
Well, so you've mentioned this a few times now, where you're like, I'll just play this card on the next turn. And that's one way of thinking about things, for sure. But when you wait, even just one turn, so much can happen in one turn. If you wait for one turn, your opponent gets to do whatever they want, and you lose that snowball pressure, like I mentioned earlier. Whereas, like, if we had the footholds on board here, this Tyrannex would be dead, of course, and we would be able to take a few extra hits. It was pretty dire in this situation, regardless, but it's one out we play to. Slow plays just 100% lose when Carassius is being played.
Alright, I guess now it's your turn.
You went against some very tricky lineup matchups, so I don't blame you at all. They're tough ones to pilot.
It's also the fact that I can't focus that much. I've experienced this also in my own streams.
That's fair too. That's fair too. Streaming's hard.
It's harder to focus.
Like, I joke. I make mistakes all the time, and I mean, I don't think people think I'm a bad player. When you're streaming and you're having to think not only about the board, but also talking points and the reasons why you're making certain decisions, sometimes you misplay because of that, and that just happens. That's the sacrifice we make for streaming.
Indeed. Let me know when you get into a game.
Sure.
Now, as a reference to the strength of the deck, even though unfortunately I didn't showcase this to the full potential, I have been number 4, number 3.
Yeah, Sash is a long-time player of the game. He's very experienced, so...
I'm talking about the deck specifically, like the exact build up of the deck. You can get to high levels of gut rank, like top 5, top 3. Like last year, I remember I was like 3 consecutive months #1, and it's all plus the climbing. If you want to climb with something, I've climbed just this month in 24 hours with Blue Jump all the way to #1 as I mean to God rank from the reset. So it unfortunate that I couldn't showcase it to the best of my ability, but it is a super strong deck. So I recommend you give it a try.
Yeah, so the Husk matchup, I think was very winnable for us. I think we might have just made a couple misplays.
It was winnable at some point.
The Carasius one was a lot more difficult. I don't know if any player would be able to come back from that.
Like, we could have had a chance against Carasius, but we didn't have the opportunity to frogify the first one, so then it goes down the hill pretty fast.
Yeah, with the failed experiment, that's pretty rough because you can't frogify. But even if you get to frogify, like we mentioned, frogify is so expensive, and Bamser already had pretty good control over that board, so it would have been tough regardless.
And I had a good aggressive setup with the Warrior, Mystic Beast, and Colossus. But of course, the Maginata effect with the failed killed the Colossus and didn't allow me the chance to frogify while the Maginata was inside.
So in this position, I was thinking of going Battletoads, but since we're against Rush, Triton Warrior is a little better in case Queen's Guard comes down. So we're actually going to invest the Triton Warrior.
Yeah,
Battletoads is a lot more.
Yeah,
and Battletoads is a lot more resilient to what was I gonna say? Removal and things, but also its flexibility in which position you want to go into. I'm also going to go onto this space here, since we are against Rush. This gives me the option to potentially Sunken Tower if I wish. And I don't mind investing super hard into one side since our opponent's rushing. If this was a side... Okay, we're against a new player, I guess. That's okay. I like how you got Bamser. Like twice.
Bamser twice.
I hate the new player. Incredible. Yeah, so if it was a sideline deck, I would put the Triton Warrior center, just so I have flexibility in sides, but against Rush, you don't really care. Of course, this is, you know, something. This sure is something. Faeria, 2 damage, whee!
I mean, just a Sunken Tower wins you the game, right here.
Oh, I don't even need a Sunken Tower, I have a Ninja into Humbling. A 5-3. So, yeah, it's just gonna be Ninja into Humbling, and we don't really have to do too much else. Not much to think about here. Actually, yeah, it's whatever. And then either step on the forest, or we get into this position where we can threaten more well collections. And then we might as well take this. And we'll go for Toads.
I think I prefer the other Toad on E2, so that you can fight with it as well.
Yeah, I was considering this position. I don't know if it really accomplishes too much, but we don't have to think too hard about this. But if this were a really tough match, maybe like a competitive list, I actually probably would take the center land here. This one is good at fighting, but only if we draw a Sunken Tower. Right.
Not really.
We'll
You
put it
can
in the
hit
center.
face with put a neutral on the left side next to his warp, and the other neutral to fight with the frog that you would have had at E2.
You can't reach anything without Sunken Tower though, right?
You can with the neutral. You
If
jump and you
E2. He can't reach any of these special lands.
not those, but he would have hopefully played something.
Well, I mean, okay, against a competitive player,
But
though, I would
doesn't matter,
expect
'cause that was
anything
just
here.
a nonsense game.
It was.
Or did you plan to go double neutral and collect? Because then otherwise it doesn't.
It's not really so much a plan as just the flexibility of options. Putting it center allows me to collect on right side, or I could double collect with a double neutral on left side if I wish. And so I have the option of both of those. The option of being on E2 requires a Sunken Tower top deck, and it requires him to put a creature on one of those special lands to reach, so it's really far-fetched. I'd rather go for the potential option of double collecting or collecting left side.
Since he didn't have creatures, okay. If he had more creatures.
So Aurora start is pretty cool. I think we'll hang on to that with a starter. And
Beru is quite good.
So tell me, Sesh, do you hard mulligan for profits?
I do.
Do they just come
also,
to you?
That sounded like a trick question, but I do because I don't have that many creatures. So even if I get Aurora or Sunken Tower or something else, I have to mulligan them because I need something playable turn 2. Which often turns out to be profits.
Beru huge in this matchup. So we will build up the Beru lands just with a lake, and we're probably going to end up staying close to home. We do have that Colossus in the deck, but how I like to play this is I like to have some fighting tools to start. I don't feel very comfortable in double collecting right off the bat. Because I need to defend my face a little bit, so I'm not gonna be worried about Colossus for a long time in this game. If we top deck into them, we probably just try and draw past them. What is happening? I guess we're double neutraling then. Ignore what I'm saying. Oh my god. Alright. Ignore everything I just said. He didn't play anything, so we'll double collect now. But this also just gives the option, right? We have the option to double collect, we have the option to go back and fight. Will he play into Slinger? He will. It's completely fine.
If Beru doesn't die, it's game over for him.
Yeah.
Unless he taunts, but I don't... Yeah, okay. But even that, you have enough Faeria for Ninja Aurora and...
Yeah. It looks like he's considering putting a creature here. Another taunt. Oh wow. We can still do a... We can full... do I have enough for full clear? I don't think so.
No.
So we probably just even leave this Grimguard alone. He's actually literally doing nothing. We just take a collection here. And now I can take my aggressive lake. And I can't really battle Toads though.
There is a better Grimguard to kill, in my opinion.
A better Grimguard. Well, I'm thinking of killing the center one.
Yeah.
Go down and collect.
Exactly. Initially, you think you would kill the other one because it has access to face, but killing the center one means that he.
Well, he's only got one attack.
The warrior is doesn't have to think about the 2/5.
Yeah, I might actually do Ninja Toad Aurora here now that I think about it and hit face, cause I need to do that eventually, and I get tempo pressure, and yeah, this actually just looks better. Aurora.
Would you like some tea?
And then I guess just +1 from here. Plays a lake. I mean, a mountain into my Beirut. Alright. I guess he's forced to play a creature. Another one. Poor guy. So we double neutral to take a collection. Oh, actually we could
take a collection, but then the 6/4 dies. But it's not good.
The 6/4 dies? The 6/4 will stay alive. We just, I think I build a lake just to get up to Tide Lord stuff.
No, I meant if you don't want to do double neutrals, unfortunately, for collection the 6/4 dies. That was my point. So don't do that. I just gave some.
So I'm gonna do this. Makes the Beirut pretty vulnerable, but that's okay. And then I don't need. We'll just take the face hits, the wax. Play out of. Nothing really matters. It's on one mountain. Can you set up a lethal?
Why? Why set it up there? Okay, flame burst, but
here's another thing for new players. Well, okay, I guess you wanted to defend the mountain, sure. If this wasn't a Beirut, though, you don't really want to flame burst a creature that's not collecting or doing any sort of pressuring, but
I think his Grim Guards could have been better used defensively, hoping to get like 4 damage for each Grim Guard or something like that. If I was my opponent.
Right. So yeah, we'll just, I don't know, we'll set up some sort of lethal here.
Ooh, I like the way you did the double neutrals instead of going up.
Yeah, so this gives us Sunken Tower potential to face if we want it.
That's one, but also the fact that you can put, but you don't have Tide Lords. Never mind.
But I don't have a lake. Oh. Okay. Alright.
Yeah, Moon is definitely OP, and the deck is much better.
Yes, I'm clearly the better player. With these past 2 matches, you could clearly tell. Alright, Bamster, time to queue. Put us in our place. We win against Burn Rush and Siege Engine Rush. Incredible. This is one reason also I stopped for now doing my card review series where I would play like a game. It is so hard to find a decent game. I might end up like just calling upon some people to do private lobbies or something. That might be a better idea for the future. No offense to anyone at all, by the way, on ladder, because Faeria is a really difficult game to play. It's just hard to get someone of like equal skill level just playing on ladder. Private lobbies could be a better bet. Vamser is on the case. Gets lonely at the top. Who's at the top here?
There is one card we haven't discussed.
The lizard himself.
For blue jump, and that is the Triton Diver.
Ah. This is a fun little guy.
And it has the same life and same cost as the Prophet. But the idea is that this one is aquatic, and so can collect without needing lands.
Yeah,
and
very cool.
Most importantly, can be placed turn 1.
Ooh. Ooh, we got the Prophet into Mystic Beast. Unfortunately, we're not going second, so we don't get the OP line, right? We go Lake. This one's even awkward. But we might as well keep it.
I think it's a keep, actually.
Yeah, it's a keep. We don't get the OP Explorer turn, where we get to go Lake Prophet, Explore Lake, Mystic Beast, and double collect. But it'll just come down a turn slower, that's okay. This is the Husk. So we generally always want to go double side here. I mean opposite side, sorry. Just to maintain our collections. Imagine the balloonfish line comes again, just like he did with you.
Yeah, I think that balloon fish line was what interrupted, because what interrupted the normal flow of the deck, because with this deck you need 3 turns to set up, right? The whole idea is to do this, and then the Mystic Beast collect if it survives and put something behind, or if it doesn't survive, Mystic Beast and maybe put something behind the Mystic Beast. But he had a great balloon fish where he stopped all of that. So
yeah, the balloonfish was pretty nasty.
Yeah.
He switched the game. Merchant. Alright, so I was thinking...
That was a great lesson of how vulnerable this deck is if you don't get those 3 turns of peace. Soldiering is okay. That one is fine because it's expected almost.
Right, so we're going to play a sturdy Mystic Beast here. Now, typically this space is great for Mystic Beast. In the Husk matchup, though, especially, we're very concerned with collections, and that's just what we're going to do for the start of the game.
Yeah.
Is just collect a lot.
Yeah, this is the perfect 3-turn setup that you need.
We have some information here, too, because our opponent gave us Royal Judge. Bamster might have something that he's not concerned about getting Royal Judge did, so it's probably like a gift creature, like Bomb Slinger or Frog Tosser or something, or Soul Eater. So we should be considering about those potential options. Or Copter, or Firestorm. So we probably want to play around AoE this game, at least until we see whatever this card is. Okay, so we'll continue collecting, probably slap a second Mystic Beast unless we want to threaten this 3-3. I actually might want to threaten the 3-3. I said I wanted to play out of AoE, but this shouldn't be too devastating into Firestorm. And actually a 2-2 fighting this Demon Wing is pretty huge. So we might just go for Toads here. Another option... Yeah, that's probably just the only option we have, yeah. Let's do the Toads, and then we'll +1 from here. And there's not really a point in playing anything else. Suppose we had the option to build a lake, put the Toad in range, but I'd rather play around, like... Well, I think we know what the list is.
I think it's better to put the lake on C2. Since you have the Sunken Tower.
I really don't want to play this card if I can help it.
Okay.
I think I'm just gonna be +1ing and passing here. The reason is because this is really expensive. Like I mentioned, we want to be selective in what cards we play, and I don't want to spend 2 Faeria.
But you don't spend it now, you just make the lake and that's it.
Yeah, I want flexibility though with my power wheel. I think +1's a very good option. We can potentially go for double neutral into some neutral creatures if we wish. You wanted the aggro lake? Yeah, I thought about that afterwards. We could have gone aggro lake, placed the 2/2, and then the Mystic Beast. I was about to mention that we could play out a mobility, but we actually already know what Bamster's list is consumed of, and that's only champions. So I don't actually need to care about mobility tricks until turn 5. So I do think the better play was building the aggro lake, Mystic Beast backwards, to the 2/2 upwards. Because it's also super awkward now if we want to take this trade. On left side, we need to double neutral, and then Bamster's not really needing to care about this right side because we can't answer it, right? We do have the tower in hand, I suppose, but I don't want to play the tower like I mentioned. I mean, if an opportunity presents itself that's really good, I will play the tower. For sure. Holy, this might be an amazing turn. Grizzly. We can full clear left side here. Oh, wait, no, we can't. We need to invest the command. That's unfortunate.
I mean, you could with the Royal Judge, but it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. That's unfortunate, but not the end of the world. We just double neutral and kill this.
Given that you want to clear that 3/3, this is where I said that you would rather have a lake, because the difference between this game and my game is that the 2/2 didn't have the access to the Sunken Tower. So the double neutrals, you don't want a prairie at the lake. You want a lake next to the well instead of a prairie.
Sure. One thing I have in flexibility, I would have preferred the right side anyways here, but one thing I do have with flexibility is just more draws and +1s, but yeah, anyways. So we'll probably just dump a warrior here as a collector. That's pretty much all I have anyways. And he's on champion,
so you
but he can't
don't
do
like
too
the
much.
lake, apparently, at the well.
The lake at the well? Oh, well,
Yeah,
so
the
this
line
is,
that I mentioned.
yeah, the reason I don't like this is because it forces the investment of the Sunken Tower as opposed to only making this optional. And that's what I don't particularly like. Is this going to become a 6/3?
But then you don't have good ninja lines afterwards if you don't have the lake.
It's fine. We deal with that when we have to deal with it.
Plus, you have Tide Lords. You would have been already on Tide Lord.
Well, the lake on right side was what I wanted to do, but here, like, I also just don't want the Tide Lord to come down. Unless it's really impactful on the board. Like, I'm not playing a Tide Lord into 6/3s, right?
Not at the moment, right? Not at the moment. But yeah, look how different this game is simply because the right side wasn't interrupted with a swallowed creature, so it was interrupted 2 turns in my case.
No ninjas, unfortunate. We could go for protection with the Royal Judge. That would actually be kind of cool, potentially. And then what else are we playing? I don't really have actually that much to play here. It's just a Mystic Beast.
That's another reason for Lake, so you can have Title Lords as playable instead of unplayable.
Well, here I have the option to build the lake, right? So, now this is the turn I probably want to invest the lake. Unless I'm just going for Battletoads. I think I will go for Protection, though. I don't know, that's really expensive. Actually, Battletoads is a lot better if I'm playing a 1-1 here, right? But I do need the lake regardless, in that case. Is that the play? I guess so. Let's go Safeguard. This guy's kind of good into the other merchant cards, I guess, but eh. I want to keep this well position. And then we either step up or we step passive. Oh, where's Toads? Where's Toads?
I think you should move the 4-5 up before
I couldn't
playing
find the
Battle.
cards. God damn. I'm blind. Well, GG, I guess. That was such a bad misplay.
But still, even if you had time, I would have preferred the Mystic Beast to be up and the Toads behind it, because now you're not facing a demon, you're facing the Grizzly.
I just don't want to play into Mobility Trick. He can play like a double neutral or something to collect and zip my 4-5 and then value trade because he's on champion here. Oh, that's so bad though that I missed the Toads. No Phantasm in this list, huh?
But I still don't see.
So he built a neutral, the second neutral on E5. He plays champion, sends my 4-5 over, and it's just a free trade for him. Alright.
But now, because it's not the well, you can't jump back collecting twice.
Yeah, I'm assuming I'm just gonna go for the hit here. It's a little unfortunate. Frogify puts this to... I really wanted a humbling pickup. Frogify puts this... Yeah, humbling would have been great.
I would just collect and play Colossus. Play Colossus on F4.
I want this 1-1 to collect. So we go for double neutral. Go up. Frogify does hurt a little bit. I don't have any other Tritons to play either. Oh no, this should be fine. We ought to follow up Mystic Beast. Oh god, apparently I'm so dyslexic. I cannot see the cards. Mystic Beast. We could even play Toads, which is what I wanted to play there, yeah.
I don't like that line. I think Colossus on F4.
I really wanted the collection with the left side here, but I wanted to get Battletoads down there once again.
I mean, sure, you collected, but you had to make the land for it. And so you're getting worse.
You wanted
and
me
worse
to build the land anyways, though, right?
Yeah, but you're getting worse and worse with the land position. You don't have lake at the well on the left, and you don't have a lake.
Left side I've
aggressive at
given
the
up.
other
We're
well.
not contesting this unless we go for a Ninja Toad line in the future. But what this does, it just gives me the land placement for free, right? Because we get that collection. But I missed the Toads, which again is just gonna set me back so far. So instead of taking... I don't know. We could take the clear or we could go back and collect here.
I think taking the clear because...
It's probably taking the clear if he plays nothing else
Yeah.
here. I forced myself into it and I lost a collection for literally no reason. But we can put Tide Lord on the neutral, we have enough for that, so let's just put pressure. He's played 2 of his 6/3s, so he's only got 1 left. And he needs an actual body to play onto it. Really nice thing about this Balloonfish staying here is this is like 5/5 stats worth of value just stuck here in this Balloonfish. Champion... Champion's not too bad here. Could be worse.
Depending where he puts the champion, we might have the Phantasm for it to reduce the mobility of it.
Oh, that's one card we can play. Even saving the Royal Judge was cool. Oh no, sorry. Champion's not neutral.
Wow, he gave us the Ogre Adventurer. This one can reduce
yeah, this is cool, but I'm a little spooked of Royal Adventure as well. It's also... I might consider it, depends what happens here.
Ooh, we get a very nice trade of the Mystic Beast into the 6/3.
Mystic Beast into 6/3. We also have Sunken Tower here to take one of the 5/2s. Yeah, so that will just happen. Sunken Tower definitely happens. Depends where we want the lands to be moved. I guess we move the neutral. So this happens, and then we've got enough room for a 4 cost. Perhaps we even kill the 5/2? I'm not sure, though. Or we produce a Colossus. It's pretty bad, though. I guess the 6/3 is not terrible. I mean the 3/6, sorry. Okay, so this comes here. This hops over. Take this boy. This probably just hits face. Or we could take a value and then drop a Colossus that can't be answered. I think I might go for the lake.
I think I like value trades because you're going face, but
Let's take this.
if you're going face, he's going to play 2 husks, and it didn't have that much impact.
Yeah, I'm worried about the soul drain coming on the Colossus, is why I was timid playing the Colossus. And the husks are just gonna heal him back anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
Optionally with that line we could have went for the Ogre, but the Ogre is honestly really bad because it's gonna discount junk cards like Egg. And we're also forced into playing these discounted
That's
cards.
just 1 out of 7.
Well, a Phantasm's really bad too into this matchup. And then if it hits like a Ninja Toad and we don't want to play a Ninja Toad on a turn, I don't know. It's not the end of the world, but I'm also a little bit spooked of champions in the future and Royal Judge. But it was definitely a consideration. I would consider it.
I wonder why he's only 1 husk so long.
Oh, I should have moved the 2/2.
We have Ninja for collection. It all depends what happens with the 7/7, because we don't have Faeria now.
Yeah.
We are finally running low. I see. Okay, he gave us the collection, but also removed the tempo. There's the husk. Oh, that was smart, so that we couldn't go aggressive on F5.
Alright. Sad.
So now here is where the Phantasm, the looking glass, could transform the 5/5 that is in the middle of the left side.
I'd probably even prefer killing the one up aggressive if that's the play, but the Sunken Tower is really expensive too. We have a Ninja Toad, that's very expensive. Yeah, that doesn't accomplish anything. Oh man.
Like if you don't Phantasm, then he's going to go face with a lot.
Sure, we'll take a Phantasm. We have to stay out of range, unfortunately. Oh, this is just bad. Should have the third champion coming soon. I really lost a lot by missing those Battletoads in those earlier turns too. That's gonna be really unfortunate. No answer to the champion.
Why wasn't the Phantasm put on F2?
I had to play out of range of his champion. Oh, why wasn't his put on F2?
I mean,
yeah. Well, because I could clear it.
No, but from where he had the champion, he would have been glad if he hit, because then it's not going. The champion is not going face. You are already collecting from that well, so maybe putting the Phantasm, the Looking Glass, sorry, on F2 helped.
Skimming that heal was pretty bad. I don't know. It's looking pretty dire.
I think it's lost, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a win condition anymore. He's on fatigue, but I don't think we have enough time, and we burned to heal.
No, but fatigue takes some time. It's
Yeah,
not.
we're like too much pressure here. We can.
Like not even in my game, fatigue was a win condition. Simply because it takes like 1, 2, 3, 4. It takes a long time.
All right. He should have Soul Drain in hand, so it doesn't really matter.
I definitely think we should have risked the Looking Glass, so that you already had a chance to train. But yeah, it didn't matter.
Okay.
Okay, I'm curious if he shows though. Oh, you should have waited to see what.
Oh, I had lethal on board there.
But maybe he played the treasure first. Yeah, tough matchup for blue. Simply because the deck.
I actually think blue is favored in that matchup, I'm not gonna lie. Blue should be able to collect pretty significantly, but I misplayed the Battle Tides. What else? Yeah, I think it was fine besides that. That particular one was kind of tough, perhaps, but perhaps there was a misplay in there. Generally, mono blue is kind of okay because you can collect a lot and actually play the cards you're being fed. So...
Yeah, but there are a lot of cards that are expensive. 5 cost, 7 cost, 8 cost with the bears. So sure, you can have Battletoads, but some of them die to the Soul Drain, and some of them probably get value traded. So
the Tide Lords are not too great in the matchup. Beirut obviously is pretty bad, but we didn't draw into it, thankfully.
Like, why is Tide Lord bad? Because, I mean, sure, it's bad against the 6/3s, but otherwise, that's 6 life.
It's just expensive. We really want Swarm in that matchup.
Yeah.
And Prophet lost you the game, to be honest. I kind of agree as well. Prophet's... I mean, so I'm not a believer in the Prophet. Maybe that's why we lost. Yeah. I'm just not a believer. Prophet...
But it gave you so many collections. And... But, yeah,
the body and the stat line's just really bad. But... the whole idea, Prophet gets its power in the early game for that early tempo pressure, and tempo just doesn't work against that type of list anyways. It also was awkward that we went first, because we missed the, like, really profitable Mystic Beast opener, but that's okay. And yeah, the other issue is that our lands were super clunky by being in between wells. We weren't able to establish that threat range that the jumpers can establish. Okay, so we can keep the Water Alley, we can keep a Humbling Vision, I guess.
No, I don't think so. It's too early to keep the Humble.
Toads, Warrior... sure, we got plenty of tricks, I guess. Well, Rush, 3 out of 4 games. Amazing. So, we have the option to try and claim our Colossus spaces, or we can go for a double collection. I almost like the double collection better. I think we'll go for that.
Yeah, versus Rush, double collection is better.
Yeah, especially with Battletoads coming.
Yeah. And when
Oh
you
my
have
god.
a bit of time, oh my goodness, what is that?
I hate everything, Sesh. Everything. Oh, maybe I wanted both on... Oh, it doesn't matter, he's playing neutrals. You never traded the Mystic Beast. Yeah, the Mystic Beast really wanted a value trade in there. Oh no, where's my Humbling Vision now? It's okay, we can Tide Lords.
But even if you have the Humbling, you only have a Frog.
Yeah, that's true.
Now you can get a Humbling.
Humbling!
Double
that
draw?
will work even better.
Even better, yeah. And this is why Frogify is in my list, because it denies a lot of effects on the creature.
Yeah. I guess we'll just draw here. Oh, I could have stepped the 3-3. That's okay. What elemental? Oh my god. So, free value trades. I'll take a free value trade.
And you can even put the Tide Lord on the collection. Oh, you want it
Oh
in
yeah,
the...
I could put it there.
I think in the on the forest on collection it's better.
Yeah, I suppose so. I was thinking I would threaten this left side well, but I guess we won't.
I mean, you have Ninja for that, or if you put the frog up, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Doesn't matter too much, I guess. I was thinking you would be disincentivized to actually playing on this right side forest, because I've got 5 stats here, but yeah. Alright, so I think we'll go one more. We got a pretty lengthy stream. And we've played against, like, 3 new players and Bamser. that's been our experience today.
I think I should record some games.
Yeah?
Because I think there is a case to be made for Prophet being very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think Prophet could work. I think it just fits a very select archetype.
I mean, sure, we are talking about jump.
Well, not just the jump archetype, but like a very select niche in that archetype as well, even further. I kept the Sunken Tower. We'll see. And the Aurora, which is a bit greedy, but it looks like we're not against Rush for a 5th time. So, that's cool.
I mean, Sunken Tower gives you great position on the enemy well, so you don't have to go double neutral.
Yeah, so, do I even Sunken Tower just here this turn to get the Warrior?
Yeah, that's possible.
Like,
Definitely, that's possible.
I'd rather the neutral on this side, I guess.
The only question
just
is
expensive.
It's expensive, yeah. That's the only question about it.
We'll just do this. The other consideration is if we want to play around like Ground Shaker and pings, we want to just use this up as much as possible, but I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it too much. Oh my god. Insane.
Wow.
Unfortunate. We'll take a draw. Fortunate.
But
Looks
then we are happy we didn't invest the sunken tower.
Yeah, very happy. I think this looks like a control type of lusts. So these Battletoads might be short-lived. If not, we can threaten that 1/1. Plague Bear. Okay. Well, we have a choice here, because we can go for the clear on left side, or we take our Colossus. Discounts.
I think Colossus is better, but we don't invest too much on the board.
I agree, I think it's better as well, just because we threaten this 1/1 from maybe staying here and not collecting, because the 2/2's here. And then he's already collecting on this wall with the Plague Bearer anyways, so it's not a big concern. So the next question is double neutrals or lake? I almost want to build a lake here to open up Aurora and Tide Lord next turn. Even though we have to invest the Sunken Tower, I think the land count, looking at this hand, is pretty important. So we'll just do that with the Sunken Tower. Now we do have Aurora coming in the future. Do we want to put this land in between wells for the Aurora to double collect?
Usually it's not that great, but versus
We
red,
got plenty of creatures, I guess. It doesn't matter. We could even invest Aurora here, actually.
I would just say don't invest on the board. Just draw and collect as much as possible so that he gets less value from that.
Yeah, I guess we'll just pass. We've got this Plague Bearer on board, so yeah, like you just said. Ignis. You're willing to kill your own Ignis? We can literally just hit into that 2/1 now. It's such good value.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And just ignore the Village Elder then. And then...
But you have to humble, right? You have to
we humble
the
first. But then the question is, do we want to play the Tide Lord as a 6/4? I guess we want to play this as a 5/5, if anything.
I wouldn't, Moon, I wouldn't play the Tide Lord because it gets a ping.
Oh, that's what I mean about being a 6/4.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it because what would be better would be Ninja next turn into Tide Lord. And then
we
it's
could Ninja Aurora. It's an option. Or we just dump the Tide Lord as a 5/5. It's not terrible.
So you don't like Ninja next turn? Into for example...
We'll save it, we'll save it. It was just an option to play it as a 5/5 if I wanted more flexibility with where the Ninja goes. But it looks like we're going left side. And then we can Aurora here. After the value trades. If we have enough for that. Oh, I missed a double collection if I wanted to use the tower also, but it's okay.
I would have preferred one neutral aggressive so that we have...
well, so here was the actual plan. I should have built a lake, Sunken Tower, then we get to double collect with Ninja Toad, and then we get to follow up Aurora, but I didn't calculate it.
So either the lake, as you said, or if you did go neutrals, sometimes you want this E6 land.
That's fine, but I don't think I want to waste a Sunken Tower ping just because of that. But I definitely should have gone with the leg play in hindsight now, because we just lost our ninja.
I mean, you lost the ping anyway, so it's unfortunate.
True, I guess if we're in fear of Ground Shaker anyways, we want to use up that ping, so that's a fair point. I'm just gonna play a 5-cost Colossus here. And +1 or draw. I guess we actually just draw to see what we get. Sure. Our opponent's behind now, so we don't care about Cypher's Wrath.
I mean, hook is a thing.
A hook? That'd be pretty spooky, but we have options if that happens. No, he's on 3 lines. What do you mean? No hook.
3 lands. My phone ran out of battery, so I'm looking on the tiny display on Discord. Like, it's literally one thumb, the size of a thumb, that's all I'm looking at.
Shall we just put 2 Colossus aggro? That sounds like fun. Just take that trade. It's not very good. We just go back. Kill this. It's not a big concern what we do here. Hellfire exists. Yeah, we'll just do this.
Okay, you invested the Frogify. I would have put a Mystic Beast instead.
I was considering a Mystic Beast instead, yeah, but this is like almost lethal. No, it is lethal, right? Yeah. So he's got to deal with it. Another case of contemplating a 1 game, yes. But I don't know, we gotta put thought somewhere. Like, all these games are just ending, right? Sometimes you have to contemplate a 1 game.
How big is that?
6 damage. Oof, a second one. Wow. Incredible. Alright. Well, Sesh, do you have any closing thoughts?
Be like water, my friend.
Love it. Alright, well, thanks everyone for joining, and thank you, Sesh, especially for joining. Always love to have new people on. I think this is the first time you've been on the stream.
I have. Yeah, it is, yes.
Very cool. And, yeah, the next thing, the upcoming is the Seasonal Cup this next weekend, April 22nd on a Saturday. So stay tuned for that. Thanks everyone for joining, and see you guys next time. Bye-bye.